What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Season Gaming Bitcast, episode 284. I am your host, Ainsley Bowden. It is another lovely Sunday here in Kansas City, and we are looking forward to a pretty good show for you today. We got a lot of things to talk about. I am extremely excited to talk about No Rest for the Wicked. Sadly, we have to talk about more layoffs across the industry and what that means for teams at PlayStation and Electronic Arts. We've got Toys for Bob going independent, which is an interesting thing. And of course, we're going to be talking about Rebirth and a lot of other games as well. So good morning. Hello. I see the man, the myth, the seven is back in the house rocking the Pharaoh shirt. Mr. Rodriguez, welcome back, sir.
Thanks. Good to be back. Good show last week, gents. I was able to tune in a little bit. I got there really early and then I had to leave. And then that was
Terrible.
it. So,
we were better than K-State, so I mean, come on, you should have just stayed with
they did win, so I'll give them that much. So,
fair enough. Fair enough. Very good.
Yeah,
very good.
Good to be back. Ready to go.
Sweet.
Let's do
Mr.
this.
Hogue, living that Rebirth life. How you doing, my friend?
I am. I'm doing fantastic. What a great weekend for media. I got to play Rebirth on the 29th. I got to see Dune Part 2 on the 1st. I am living the high life. This is what it's all about, folks.
Nice. I'm seeing Dune 2 right after this show. So we're not going 3 hours today. I'll tell you that right at the start. Audience, sorry, we're going to let you down today. No hashtag. But what'd you think, Hogue? Was it as good as everyone's raving about?
It was fantastic. It is one of my favorite movies in a long time, and I am a big-time lover of the book. I have loved Dune for a long time. It's one of those things that I have regularly read as an adult, and I know that there are folks on the internet talking about things that are different from the book or scenes that are different or things like that. I have no doubt that they are there. I have no doubt that they exist, but the essence of the story of Dune was put up on the screen in a way that I could not have anticipated and is basically everything I could have possibly wanted from that. So I could not recommend it more. What a great movie.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
So as somebody who's read the books, or just the first one, have you gone on to read Messiah and everything else too? Or
I know the first one the best. I went through the series like in grade school and did not revisit those.
How?
I did the same thing.
I mean, you guys are out of your mind. I mean, I couldn't understand it as an adult, right? So I read the books. I've read them several times. I stopped the last time with the third one, and I know they're working on maybe doing a third one for Dune Messiah.
There is no doubt that they are doing a third one.
Here's the thing, though, man. I mean, if you really get into it, it starts getting pretty out
weird,
there.
bonkers. Yeah,
bonkers. Like you can't even start explaining stuff. Like, I mean, Chapter House is just something completely crazy. I mean, it doesn't.
I do not believe that WB is going bonkers with their Dune series, but I do think they are going to do a version of Messiah.
I feel like one is a perfect movie, because I remember that was one of my dad's favorite movies, the original Dune, back from
David Lynch.
Yes, the old David Lynch one, right? And that's kind of got me into it, and I think it's perfectly it's just in that capsule where it starts well, it's got a great story, finishes perfectly. Outside of that, and having read the books, I'm not sure people will be able to follow along with all the stuff that happens past Messiah, especially, but even starting in Dune Messiah, it starts getting a little bit weird and wonky.
I think they're going to get a little bit weird. I don't think they're going to go into full God Emperors or worm things or anything.
Yeah, the God Emperor stuff is really, it's something different. But good. I'm actually going to be in the theater with you, Ains, but not the same theater. I go at 3:30.
That's interesting physics. How's that working?
Yeah.
You're in the same theater with me, but not.
He means the same building,
the same building, the same theater building.
Not the same house. I think you mean.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just gonna walk into yours and be like, "Hey!" Just like yell it out. There's only gonna be one of you in there, so you know exactly who.
No one else is standing up when you yell "Ains," so
sure.
you're good. You're fine.
Yeah. I'm gonna go see it at 3:30 in the GXL format as you recommended.
Yeah. So to give people my tilt on this, I love Dune as a story. I was not a big fan of the David Lynch Dune, and this is a more grounded, perhaps self-serious version of the story. I think it serves it well. But if you like a little bit more of the David Lynch goofiness in your Dune, you may wind up a little disappointed because Denis doesn't like goofiness so much. So even the Harkonnen or Harkonnen, if you're coming from the David Lynch verse, are weird, but they aren't weird in the same way that David Lynch presents them as weird. So I loved it.
Darker.
I think Dune Part 2 was fantastic. What really impressed me is that I was not at all convinced about Zendaya or Timothée Chalamet in the parts that they had for this series or as actors in general. And they killed it. Like Zendaya acted her butt off in this movie, and I didn't know that she had it in her. So Dune Part 2, folks, don't miss it. If you want
Sweet.
good epic cinema, it reminded me the most of like the Lord of the Rings, Peter Jackson's trilogy when I saw it for the first time. It is just really, really, really good movie making.
How did Creepy Elvis do?
Creepy Elvis was fantastic, and I didn't know he was going to be in it. Honestly, I tried to avoid what the cast was going to be for part 2, and one of the things that jumps out is that every new part is like a movie star. And so it's, what if we cast every part as a movie star and see if that works as a movie? And it does. And he was great.
Usually it doesn't.
Yeah.
No, it usually doesn't. Usually everything jumps out on the screen and it looks like cameos all around. But no, because of who he is and how he is playing that character, it really isn't so much Austin Butler. And so I think that really comes from a good place, right? It's casting good actors rather than just the names, even though it's like watching a Hideo Kojima game at points where it's just every actor that any director knows is in every single seat in the scene.
I love the sentence "watching a game."
Yeah.
So watching
Well,
Hideo
I mean,
He said Kojima, so it's fair.
Yeah. I mean, I first of all, I know how y'all feel about that, but secondly, you do watch a lot of Kojima game.
You do.
There's no question. You watch a lot of Final Fantasy game, by the way, too. So
you do, yeah. You also watch. I'm still on Infinite Wealth, and every single time a cutscene plays, my TV dims its screen. I have to shake the stick awake. every
funny,
single,
right?
every
My
single
kids
cutscene.
laugh. My kids laugh whenever it dims. It's like, oh yeah, I'm still playing.
I'm still
playing.
here.
The
I
new generation
swear.
of systems, whenever there might be one, needs to have a, if I'm running an application, they're probably still there.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Too
It really
complicated.
does
Give
need
it a
to
few
do
years.
that. Yeah. I don't. Yeah. I mean, or we could just stop retreading the same dialogue for 5 minutes every single cutscene. That would be sweet as well if we could stop that.
I view it as a lovely Japanese affectation. It's the
I
way
view
they
it
tell
as
stories.
a backwards Japanese trait of storytelling that I wish that would perish from this world for sake of my time. But
oh yes, and I've got the chat already telling me it is Zendaya. I know because my daughter says it right, but for whatever reason, I learned it when she first popped up on my radar as Zendaya. I know that's wrong. I will try to say it correctly. I apologize to the entire Zendaya fan base that is watching the Bitcast this morning. But yes, I will try to say it right. Thank you for correcting me.
I didn't know it was Zendaya, so there you go. I learned something.
Zendaya. Just try to confuse you guys even more.
All right. Well, great. I'm super excited to see it here in a few hours. Dan will be joining me in the same room or somewhere nearby, apparently stalking me shortly after. Meanwhile, Mr. Travis is here hanging out with us from, I was about to say sunny California, but I don't know what it's actually like in San Francisco right now. But
That's great. It's great.
Okay. Sunny California. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing right. McClunky, everyone. Happy to be here. Reviewing games, playing games. That's the name of the game. It's what I do here at Bitcast. Here.
He was doing a little Rick and Morty bit there for a second.
It collapsed really quickly.
Good.
Yeah. All right. Well, no, good to have the four of us back in action here. So before we obviously get to everything, let's run down a couple things real quick. Want to talk about last week's show with ACG. It was a really good show. Definitely check that out. It was fun having him on, and good analytics on the show as well. Several thousand views and listens, which is awesome to see. So thank you very much for that. Also, I noticed last week, I've been kind of paying attention to this for a little while, but we've been consistently running over 100 members on the SG side of the house, which is awesome. I mean, as I've said many, many times, we don't monetize anything other than memberships or super chats here. So that helps a lot with everything. So thank you so much for that.
It's very helpful.
It is. I don't say that sarcastically at all. Like literally, that helps us run everything. So it's awesome. Thank you so much for your generosity in that space. One thing I wanted to announce real quick before we get started is hard to give all the context here, but I mentioned these like several weeks ago. I'm working with good old, it goes by Ben Kenobi. People know him as Ben Kenobi in the Xbox community, who is runs Xbox fan art and is creating Xbox dedicated like collector's coins for specific games. So we're one of the few shows, and SG is one of the few outlets. I think there's like 3 that are going to be basically sharing these out with the community on a consistent basis going forward. So I wanted to shout him out, Xbox fan art out, and give you a preview of the Hellblade 2 coin, which will be I'll be doing a giveaway for very soon. They are very, very cool looking. I'm going to put them up on the screen right now. And they're doing these kind of custom artwork for, like I said, all these different games. So there's like Towerborn, they're doing one for Pal World. They're doing Hellblade. They're doing, we did Forza and Call of Duty. So these are just, if you're into those little kind of collectible things, we'll be shipping those out. Tchotchkes? Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What is that?
Tchotchke, yeah, like a little piece of collectible rubbish.
It's a little tchotchke.
Yeah, a little tchotchke.
I unless I've forgotten it, I don't recall that phrase or name.
You know how in Office Space they call their Fridays clone tchotchkes? I think is it Office Space? I think it is. Yeah, it's because they have all the crap on the walls and all that.
That's right. Yeah.
That's the joke.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, there you go. I got the Office Space joke 25 years late. But
somebody else offered knickknacks. Knickknacks is also an
knickknacks are good too.
Answer. I'll take that as well.
We're talking about knack today, folks.
You mean knack?
PlayStation sadly had to close down Knack 3. It's a shame.
It's too bad.
So anyway, pay attention for those. And then lastly, before we get into it, of course, we got to shout out good old Tide with our AI pick this week, which is based on Balatro and is fantastic because Hogue not only got the Ace of Spades, but looks purely kind of demonic in that.
He looks like he's about to do close-up magic.
I don't know if I've ever had a goatee like that.
That's pretty good.
I think you should try it. Oh no, you said Mrs. Hogue is very anti goatee though, right?
Yep. No, we follow the rules of the house.
That's great.
Travis, you look like the guy. Have you seen the show? Is it Good Omens on Prime?
Oh,
you know what I'm talking about? It's like the angel and the devil. I forget the actor who plays the devil, but I swear you look just like him in that card.
I've been told I look like the devil by many people.
Is David Tennant the devil in that?
I don't know off the top of my head. Chat may be able to tell us. So
I'm gonna look it up. Good Omens, the devil.
It's a great show, by the way. If you haven't watched it, it's really cool.
There are worse things than being compared to David Tennant.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, he's a good-looking dude. I'll take it. Is he a ginger though? Oh my god, is he a ginger?
Yeah, I mean, you are right. Yeah, you are.
I'm not a ginger, guys. I don't know what to tell you.
The AI thinks you are.
It really does, dude. And a woman apparently. It keeps making me a woman.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Dan looks like he just ran a photo of himself through an Instagram filter. So that looks like right there. No changes. Just
exactly the
dating
same
profile.
They just threw me on a card.
And for some reason, Ains is a vampire. This is not Balatro at all. He just is a vampire, straight up.
Celebrating my 700th anniversary yesterday, guys. Sure. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Good, dude. That's great. You do look like you are in need of maybe a little drink, though. You're not looking. You're healthiest. Yeah. So Hogue looks like he can help you with that. Hogue looks like he provides you with warm bodies to drink. That's his trade.
Oh my god, Todd! Thank you as always. Appreciate you. All right, let's get. Oh my god, what is going on? Okay, you guys are already going crazy with the super chats and the memberships. So let's go ahead and get to these. Dan, hit us up.
All right, Googleman with the €5. Thank you, sir. Power Wash Simulator now has Warhammer 40K DLC. Finally some integrity from Games Workshop. I don't even know what that means. I mean, play Rogue Trader, man.
It's literal. I think Warhammer 40K DLC is in Power Wash Simulator.
It is, yes.
Power Wash Simulator is a really interesting game because they grab those DLCs. I think didn't they add the DeLorean from Back to the Future at some point? I want to say they did. So yeah, Games Workshop. One of the things that I think is great about how they've treated the Warhammer brand, and one of the things I also think is simultaneously bad, is that they basically license it out to whoever wants it for whatever rates they're charging. But it does mean that you can't just depend on the brand being present as being a good quality product. So I'm glad to see Warhammer and some of those things out there so often. But for what was the game that you liked so much, Dan? It was like Rogue Trader.
Rogue Trader, yeah.
Rogue Trader's
for every
great.
one of those, there seems to be like 10 that are, let's say, a little undercooked.
Sure. Yeah.
Sure.
I hope you get to wash the blood off of various, vehicles and from the 40.
Wasn't there a PC game that was like you were the janitor behind like a FPS player and had to clean up the viscera and whatnot?
Sounds like a great premise to a game. I would play that.
That does sound hilarious.
I believe that is a game.
Great.
Googleman, thank you as always. We got a member comment from Gamefire.
Yeah, 3-hour show. Let's go and let's get the food talk starting. Okay, not either one of those things is happening.
They are not going to miss Dune, folks.
Well, the food thing might happen, but we don't know.
Food thing, yeah, it might. Yeah, for sure.
Gamefire.
Discount that.
Thank you.
Willow. Right, Vintage Willow. I'm late, but I'm here.
I'm here.
Thank you, Willow.
Thank you as always, Willow. Following up with the 5 memberships as well. So as I was just saying, always so generous. So thank you very much. Awesome to have you back, Willow. And then Detective Seeds as well.
Detective Seeds with 10 season gaming memberships. That's awesome.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. Is that? Yep.
He's like, just in
case. Out of control as well. He's out of control as well. Thank you guys so much.
Amazing.
Yep. Just repeating what I just said about how it helps everything. So thank you.
It really does.
Darth Mac, member comment.
Yeah, I missed who did it last week, but thanks for the membership gift. All right.
There you go. All right. Let's get into it. So, Hogue, I know you're chomping at the bit, so why don't you kick us off? How
they are both acceptable.
How is Rebirth?
Rebirth is good. I
Moving
have
on.
Complicated feelings towards it. Yes, that's the review. Thank you for joining the Bitcast today. Rebirth is a quality video game experience. Go try it for yourself. For folks that don't know, but I suspect most do, love Final Fantasy. It's probably my favorite series in games. And Final Fantasy VII in particular was the game when I was a kid that I had a pre-order from the local electronics boutique that I ordered 2 years before the game came out and had it in my wallet. Just remember that it was coming for that entire period of time. It got soaked when my uncle threw me in a pool at a family wedding. A whole bunch of stories on these kinds of things. So Final Fantasy VII means a lot to me. And the remake project was both the best thing that Square Enix had done in a long time for me, and also a game that I thought was kind of a little bit of false advertising, especially once you got to the end of that project. Now, Rebirth is a sequel to Remake, and I mean that in every way possible. It really takes most of the systems from Remake and doubles or triples or quadruples the complexity of those systems and adds a lot of choices that you get to make in your character builds and provides all of that role playing that was missing, I think, in Final Fantasy 16 in terms of systems and accessories and armor and all these choices that you get to make to grow your characters. But in that, I do think it lost a little bit of the elegance and straightforwardness of Remake. And because you have these different characters that all have their basic different ways of attacking and running their battles, you combine that in the start of Rebirth with these additional systems. And I think you wind up in a moment, certainly early on, where you just don't understand what's happening, how to grow, how to proceed through the story of the game. And then because they're trying to emulate what is the open world section of Final Fantasy VII with this new action adventure kind of framework, you've got these wide open spaces with huge amounts of mini games, very reminiscent of Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth from earlier this year. And while that is great, and I've had a good time exploring these places and getting lore from these areas that I didn't have before that are helping to inform our understanding of Final Fantasy VII, it does tend to change the pacing, right? Remake is a tight 25 hours. It is basically all killer, no filler for its entire runtime. And while there are very short amounts of time where you're looking for cats or whatnot in that game, mostly you're going between cutscenes and story developments and fighting
I
machine
forgot about that.
preparation. Yeah, that did happen in remake, but it's such a small bit of that remake progress that it's almost all forward direction in remake. And Rebirth is a lot more of, I think, what people with open worlds are more used to, which is you go and set up the story when you want it, and then you're otherwise wandering around, getting well-written subquests, getting subquests that help inform your characters in your party and the world around you, and doing various things that are rewarding in the same way they're rewarding in Infinite Wealth. But I do think it changes the pacing a little bit, and I'm not sure I like it as much as remake or even as much as Infinite Wealth. Now, that one's a little bit harder for me because I loved Infinite Wealth so much, but I'm not as interested in modern dudes in Hawaii as I am in anime characters saving the world from a madman and aliens and meteors and everything else. So I like Final Fantasy VII as a world a little bit more than Infinite Wealth, but I think maybe the systems and the design that went into creating the Infinite Wealth loop is a little bit tighter and more to Hoag's liking than Rebirth. Now, that being said, I'm 20 hours or so into Rebirth. I'm in chapter 4, and the stuff that has been more forward driving, I think, is a little bit more successful than the open world stuff. And I do think that I will have a better understanding of my overall feelings for the game as we go on, and I get a little bit more understanding of what the overall pacing is. But the open world sections, I think, are a little bit much. And I think the more problematic thing for me with the open world sections and some of the dungeons is that I don't love the environmental level design, right? And this doesn't come up in remake so much because you've got ladders and flat places and everything is industrialized. Here they've got organic spaces, and there were a number of times where the maps don't really help you figure out where a wall is, where a blocker is, and how to get from point A to point B. And you have to find this one tree that maybe the yellow paint guy came around and covered, or maybe he didn't, that'll have a place where you can get around this section to get to where you want to go. And I think it's not terribly good environmental design for that purpose. It was looks first, flash first, superficiality first. And I understand that because it's a very impressive game to look at and to be in the world of. But some of these areas I think are not terribly well designed. And on top of the battle system being, I think, a little bit overly complicated, creates situations where I'm not having the maximum amount of fun that I want to be having. That said, it's a great game. It's a giant world. It's a ridiculous world. I just went through a couple of scenes where essentially the party is staying at an inn, and they get full cut scenes for saying goodnight to everybody and getting a feel for the space of the town. And
Such a
it's
Final
amazing
Fantasy
for
thing.
it's amazing for being in that world and experiencing that world. And I have no doubt that folks that love Final Fantasy VII will be happy with it overall. But it is a more complicated feeling than I'd hoped to have in this conversation after my first couple of days of playing it.
I see.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, I'll be curious to see how it goes as you get deeper into the game. Obviously, it's reviewed extremely well. People seem to really, really enjoy it. As I've said many times, not my type of game, which is fine, but I'm glad to see it kind of turn out so well, seemingly for everyone. So I'll be curious to see if it kind of turns the corner for you and you kind of not overlook, but kind of are able to overlook some of the things you just mentioned and really kind of fall in love with it. I know it became a running joke this week. I don't know if you guys saw, but Famitsu, who's been around forever, right, and is the famous kind of Japanese magazine for reviews, they rated Infinite Wealth. They gave it all 10s, and they gave
Nice.
Rebirth like 38 out of 40, and people were like, Infinite Wealth's better. See, we knew it.
It is.
I mean, nobody talked about it.
What I played so
I mean,
far.
still nobody's talking about it. It's like I don't know how many people actually played it now.
Infinite
It's
Wealth.
sold. Go ahead, Dan. Sorry, I think they announced sales numbers.
I finished a trophy in that game a few weeks ago. This was it was a collectible thing, kind of, where you go through and you find certain like memories or something, and it said 10% of the people had found it. So to me, I mean, I thought that was pretty high for a collectible
really
part
high.
of a game.
Yeah.
That early. So like it just seemed like maybe not a lot of people had been playing it or had bought it. I mean,
sorry to cut you
Go
off. I know they announced something. So basically, the first week of February, so which is almost a month ago now, which seems crazy. They announced it had broken 1 million copies sold, which is the fastest in Yakuza series history.
Yeah,
So it is
that makes sense.
selling well in terms of Yakuza, but of course, Final Fantasy is a
Right.
whole nother
Whole
ball,
nother story.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
whole nother ball of wax. So yeah,
Craziness.
but at least in terms of
love it.
Yakuza games, it's selling extremely well.
Strange.
No, and I think people are going to really enjoy Rebirth, and I am definitely really enjoying it and looking forward to playing it after this show. But I had hoped to just be absolutely enamored with it, and I'm not quite there. So
Give it
we'll
some
see.
time.
Yep.
It'll be there. I bought it, didn't play it. I'm afraid to start it because I know I have to leave in a couple weeks, and I really don't want
Weeks?
to. I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't have tons of time, man. So
Weeks though?
Yeah,
That's
like,
crazy.
I just don't have the time. So I wanted to kind of play it when I have, there could be no interruptions and be able to get through.
I played the opening area. I did all the side quests and stuff, and then I was like, I really can't go any further before I finish Infinite Wealth because I still haven't beaten it. So yeah,
You did all the grasslands? So I mean,
Yeah.
like that's not nothing, folks.
That's not nothing. Yeah, I did a completionist grasslands. I really like it. I don't mind that the combat system is overly complex because I enjoy a good old complex system. I do think the story is convoluted even for a Final Fantasy VII fan, and the recap for a previously on is hilariously nonsensical if you don't know your Final Fantasy really well. Like it's almost Kingdom Hearts level of gobbledygook.
Whoa.
But, yeah,
It is not that. Travis is hyperbolizing.
it's pretty bad. I mean, I guess it depends on how bad you think Kingdom Hearts is.
Say
but
that's
there's
way
a lot
up
of
there.
there's a lot of terms and references to made up words that you really have to know, and yeah, it's kind of silly. But yeah, other than that, enjoying it, and I probably won't go back to it for a while.
Yeah, no,
I
I
got other
think
stuff I gotta
really,
finish.
I think Infinite Wealth and Rebirth is the way forward for JRPGs. I think that open world is attractive to Western audiences. I think keeping that Japanese melodramatic storyline as what you go to between these places is the right choice, and then having the rest of the open world be more necessary to powering up your characters than it was in prior attempts at this, right? This isn't Final Fantasy 15. All these systems go back into what you're doing, how you get summons, how you grow those summons, what materia you're going to have, which is your entire build in Final Fantasy Rebirth. And that's very similar to Infinite Wealth that has all the Sujimon stuff and Dendoko Island and all these things feeding into your characters that are then themselves going through this melodramatic plotline. I think these developers have solved this, and I would hope that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is combined with some of the stuff they did with Final Fantasy 16 and its plotline, the way forward for Square Enix and Final Fantasy. I really think that the Final Fantasy VII remake project turned out to be the perfect experiment for them to actually figure out how to make their old Final Fantasies in the modern world, because they don't have to break the story. They don't have to figure out the characters. These are already beloved, and it's already kind of melodramatic and candy colored in a way that was acceptable in 1997, and what does that look like in an open world environment with modern graphics? And Square has to solve the problems of making it fun and interesting with a game that they already know. And now I think they can take that and say, make the Final Fantasy 17 or 18 project that kind of thing, and understand that they don't need to be grounded. They don't need to make Final Fantasy 15 or 12 or any of these other things. They can make their goofy, ridiculous game, and people will still engage with it because that's what they liked out of Final Fantasy to begin with.
I'm into that.
Fair.
I would like an original story. I get
Well, and
I
Final
guess
Fantasy VII,
Rebirth
I keep comparing it to Infinite Wealth because that's the design, but it's also really goofy on the side quests and certain aspects of its story, right? There are 2 games this year in which you comically ride a dolphin: Infinite Wealth and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So, I mean, they're finding their place in the modern video game landscape, and I hope that Rebirth is a massive success for them because I think this is the right direction.
I'm
And I
sure it
hope-
will be. Yeah.
I hope riding a dolphin becomes mandatory.
Every game. That's what they.
Yeah.
See, that's what some developers or some movie studios would take from these kinds of analyses, right? It's like the people want dolphin riding.
Let me
Okay.
tell you something. Let me tell you something. You know who?
Agreed.
You know what game actually started all that? Hitman 3. Just letting you guys know.
Okay.
You can
I didn't
dolphin
realize you
riding.
ride a dolphin in
Yeah,
Hitman
you can
3,
you
but
can
okay.
you can leave as you're leaving Miami. If you walk over a certain fountain a certain way, you will ride a dolphin out of the area.
See, these
So-
are things I didn't know.
Should have known.
If
There you
you think
Should've known.
Hitman 3 was the first game where you ride a dolphin,
I'm
I've
just
got
saying.
news for you, Dan.
Modern.
He means in the
concept.
modern context. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
I mean,
I
What
just
was
like
old
that
is new.
we've gotten all the way to dolphin riding, and Dan can
Yes.
still bring it back to Hitman 3. That's
You're
you
welcome.
really
that's
can.
quality.
You really
That's
can.
quality.
Come
Yep.
on, Angel. We
And-
know if you
yeah.
rode a dolphin in Elden Ring, it would be popping up right now.
Yeah,
It's true.
true.
Be awesome.
I must
It is
say, though,
100% true.
Agent 47 riding a dolphin toward me, that's nightmare fuel. Like, run, dude.
It's in Travis's dreams. It'll be
You're just
Sackboy and
dead.
Agent 47 on a dolphin.
Dude, you're done. If he's managed to get a dolphin on his side to kill you, dude, I don't know. First of all, I don't know what you did to the ocean to warrant that union of death, but your days are numbered, my dude.
That's right. The chat says the new "Can you pet a dog?" I'm half inclined to start a Twitter account that's just "Can you ride a dolphin?"
Can you ride the dolphin? There you go. Do it now. You've already given someone the idea. You better get it while we're talking. Otherwise,
That's
it'll
true.
be, you're going to miss out.
Go get that engagement, kids.
That's good. That's good though. I'm sure Rebirth it's a lot of talk about it right now. I'm sure it's going to sell like bonkers. It's kind of funny that you said 1997 because then of course my mind went to, good Lord, that's 27 years ago, and I still consider Final Fantasy VII to have ruined what I liked about Final Fantasy.
It's the new
which
one,
is
right?
It's
Like, in your head?
crazy. That is the new Final Fantasy that I didn't like as much. That's crazy. I'm old, so.
Your season, yes.
But that's great. Hey, stop it. Let's get Don. Don's gone crazy here with 4 super chats in a row about Rebirth.
Thank
So
you,
let me go ahead and knock these out.
Wow. Here we
it
go.
is.
$10 super chat. Just starting off here with Don.
I want to hear
Good
all the
morning.
O's, Dan.
I said, good morning, Bitcast. Rebirth is finally here. Only
That
about
wasn't
6 to 7 hours in. I should have yelled that, I guess.
You ripped you off a
It's
few
awesome.
O's, I think, but that's okay.
Yeah. Good morning, Bitcast. There you go. How
There
you
you go.
like
That's
that?
better.
go.
That's better.
All right.
That's better.
Rebirth
Sound
is
like
finally here. There you go. There's
Cyberpunk.
exclamation, all caps. Only about 6 to 7 hours in, but it's awesome. Takes some time to get back into the swing of combat, but it's so fun. Awesome story. Quality of performance. That's a question.
Quality. Performance
Quality.
is a little bit too big of a dip for me.
Correct.
Mm.
And they announced they're releasing a patch for performance mode because it's not running like how it's supposed to. I think they said
It doesn't
right?
seem to be
Even
running
more
like
reason to
how it
wait.
would be supposed to. You might get that Horizon Forbidden West patch.
You probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably.
So he added another one, Don. Don, you're gone crazy this morning. So let's run through these and then we'll talk about them.
Yeah, and then for the first $2 super chat, for context, I've never played 7 original, only remake. All right.
I think
No
there's
need
I
quite a
fear
few
some
people
of
like
this is
that.
not going to make sense to you.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Don't know. I wish some things from remake carried over. Materia.
Okay.
$2
Yeah,
again.
one of the interesting things about this Rebirth project, right, is that it's a sequel. It's the same characters you left off in the same place, but they don't have the same rank. They don't have the same materia. They don't have the same builds that you left them with. So it's kind of like jumping into the middle of a JRPG and then trying to figure out what everybody's got and why they're that way because they're not how you left them.
That's kind of interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, Yakuza's
And it's not like they don't have like a Super Metroid or a
That's
Symphony of the Night. Like Dracula doesn't show up and move your stuff around or take your things. You just are. You're just starting this new game and you're just not the way you left them.
Yeah.
It doesn't show up and take your things.
This is
It's a
number
good old
4,
fashioned.
3 or
It's a
4.
good reset right there. Classic reset.
That's true.
Any of you ride a dolphin in real life? I have. It's lots of fun. I have not.
I have not.
Ridden, no. Pet, yes.
No.
Yeah.
Nothing.
But Ichiban and some other characters have made it look like a good time.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever even seen a dolphin in real life.
I'm afraid of the sea, so there's
Live on the
a
sea.
no-no.
I do. I don't know if I'm seeing dolphins on the coast of San Francisco for some reason. I'm just not. I don't know what it
Or
is.
seals. Seals.
That's where the
I've
humpback
seen
whales
seals.
stave off the alien invasion.
And Travis, dolphin attack featured in failure to launch.
Well, there you go. A movie I would
Dolphin
never subject myself to watching. So
we'll see about that. You're in line to get married.
There you
So,
go.
I don't even know what that
Don,
is.
I have to start watching bad movies as soon as I get married.
you
Is
watch
that
Fast
the
and
deal?
Furious. You're already there. Just
How dare
accept it.
you, sir? Christopher Nolan, greatest director, disagrees with you.
This is going to be your go-to every time this comes
Yeah,
up now.
because
Christopher Nolan
it's
said,
real, bro. Because it's real.
I'm going to argue that Denis Villeneuve is the best director right now, but Christopher Nolan's certainly up there.
He's up there, and he approves of Fast and Furious. In fact, he adores them. So
okay, don't put
maybe
words.
he knows a little bit more about filmmaking than Ainsley.
I mean,
does.
you guys are just proving my
Maybe.
point, right?
Okay,
Correct?
maybe.
Maybe.
Let's slow down.
Thank you, Eleanor. You're my.
The dude said he doesn't even understand his movies. I mean, I don't know what you guys are thinking. I mean, it's
I
just,
believe he said that they weren't meant to be understood that way.
Yeah.
same
But he
thing.
was
He said,
talking
"Don't
about
take it so
treating his movies as
seriously, you
puzzles.
nerds." That's what he said.
Yeah, pretty much. That was his
Yeah.
way of saying
Which
that.
I
By
agree
the way,
with.
It
That's
make
what I
no
say
sense.
whenever
That's what
anybody-
he was saying. He had no idea
Travis
what-
Seed says you have to go outside to see dolphins. So that's probably the problem.
Oh, okay, that makes
Yeah.
sense. All right, yeah.
But can you imagine a dolphin attack in your apartment? That would be too much.
attack? Now they're attacking? I don't. You added the attack, bro. They were never attacking. What? When did this?
I thought Agent 47 and the dolphin were attacking.
Oh,
you.
I see. I
apologize.
see. Okay, if they made it on
With
land,
Sackboy.
all right.
Don't forget Sackboy.
Jesus, please don't
Um,
bring up Sackboy.
Don,
was
thank
he
you so
made
much for the
insane?
super chats. Appreciate
Amazing.
you. What else you been playing, guys? I've been, as you guys know, I've had I'll just say busy week for purposes of the show. So I haven't played much at all this week. So what else you got?
Most
Yeah.
prominently for me, Skull and Bones.
Noise.
Hold on.
I've also been playing Skull and Bones.
I
So
have
Skull and
not.
Bones season 1 dropped this week. And it's a lot of fun. Again, following from the Diablo model I talked about last week, it's similar in kind of what it's trying to do. It's got a new damage type, a new set of enemies to fight, and new builds that you have to think about fighting them with. And I think it's a good addition to the game. Skull and Bones is a very chill type of game for me. It's you go and you sail between ports. It takes a little while. You turn on a sea shanty. You hear some pirates singing songs to you, and then occasionally you get into cannonball fights. And so I really like that, especially with Rebirth asking like all of my mathematical proficiency to win a battle against two squirrels that have a hot and cold affiliation in the forest. And so going into the Skull and Bones and just having a button to fire cannonballs at a bad guy is a enjoyable experience as a kind of counterpoint to the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth that I'm also playing. But I really like season 1 so far. I like what they did with their battle pass. It's kind of split into 3, so you can focus on various things that you want to get out of the battle pass. And I hope for the best for this game. I know that people aren't talking about it or think that it's a failure for Ubisoft already. We've talked in this space about the fact that Ubi tends to hang on with their live service aimed games, and I hope they do with this because I really like Skull and Bones a lot.
Okay,
Cool.
yeah.
I also
And
been playing Skull and Bones. In fact, I was in the top 80 players in the first week on the leaderboard. So I guess I played a lot.
You
of
got a
Skull
head
and Bones.
start, sir.
I did not. False.
You did too.
Nope.
No, head start I meant in terms of understanding the game and having played it and previewed it and all that stuff.
That's true. That's fair. Yeah, I did understand the end game better than most people. But yeah, I've been playing it a little bit. Just because the review group I played it with the exception of Alex, who played it wrong, is
He's in the chat, but
yeah, I know he is. I can't keep giving him crap for that because he played it alone like a weirdo. But yeah, my the group I played it with have been hitting me up and being like, "Hey, we're getting on. You gonna play some Skull and Bones?" I'm like, "All right, I'll dip out." But yeah, Final Fantasy Rebirth we'd already talked about. I'm still working my way through Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth. I've been playing the Star Wars Dark Forces remaster. If anybody is a fan of Star Wars Dark Forces, no response at all. Great.
I love
also-
Dark Forces, but it was
I know
not
it's
high
out
on my
there.
list.
yeah, I know it's
Yeah.
out there, but
the Brothers remaster as well. I popped into, played a little bit of that. And then I'm also playing the King Arthur Knight's Tale game. I played a little bit of that, which is a weird game, but I'm interested in it. It's weird and different.
Is
Also,
Brothers out, or is that your reviewer access?
I thought it was out. Am I wrong? Is it? Do other people not have access to it? I mean, I got a code, but I thought.
I honestly don't know.
Okay.
When I was looking yesterday, I thought it was still showing.
I think it is out. I'm pretty sure it's out. But I also, to your point,
it is
Hogue,
out.
Yes. Okay, great.
Okay.
All right. I'm not insane. And then I also reviewed the Outlast Trials, which I can talk about on March 5th on Tuesday. So I can't talk about it.
Because we talked about it previously from early access when we played together, but
I reviewed it
1.0 release, right?
Correct. Yeah, so I reviewed it in early access. I gave it a 7 out of 10. I said it was good, but it was lacking content. It was a little buggy at the time. I can give my impressions on the 1.0 starting on Tuesday. Can't talk about it this week, but that was a fun game to review. And then my next reviews are Earth Defense Force 6 starting this week. And then the week after that, I will be reviewing the new South Park game, as I told you guys last week.
Yes.
So I'm working on stuff. And then I've got a bunch of previews, and I played an unannounced game on Wednesday. I'll be able to talk about in a couple weeks. So exciting stuff.
Sweet.
Nice.
Brothers Tale of Two Sons remake came out earlier this week. So probably Tuesday of this week. Officially.
Okay.
It's $20. $20 if you have PlayStation Plus, it's 16, so you get 20% off. So not bad.
Nice.
And I think it's like, correct me if I'm wrong, doesn't this one have actual co-op where two people can control the brothers rather than you helping each other?
I played it alone, but I think you're right. And it looks great. They really upped the graphics and stuff. Looks cool.
Yeah, I watched the trailer yesterday. I just didn't think it was out. So
cool.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, I will probably check that one out. There was a demo I played this week that I was actually pretty interested in of a sequel that I had kind of put in the back of my head is coming out eventually, that is apparently coming out in like 10 days, called Outcast: A New Beginning. And if you played PC games a little while back, you might have a memory of that name. Outcast was one of the most successful, I think, voxel-based games before the industry had fully settled on polygons being the way to make graphics. And it's basically a character that gets taken into a Stargate. It was very contemporaneous to the Stargate movie, to an alternate world with aliens, and has to go and help them in a way that is similar nowadays to what you might think of as Avatar, James Cameron's, not Netflix's or Nickelodeon's. And Outcast: A New Beginning is a game that it takes that concept and makes a sequel out of it with polygonal graphics, but has always been a story and world that I liked. And the demo that is available right now is a really cool one that gives you a kind of 20 minutes to look over the entire world, or 20 minutes to experience a storyline in one of the villages, or to battle against the robots that are trying to take over the world in an untimed demo. So it has like 3 ways that it explains what it is, because it's such a broad kind of game. And I really enjoyed the demo, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it turns out when it comes out. It's got that little bit of jankiness that I tend to like in AA games. But I think people that are interested at all in what I just said should check out the demo, because it is pretty cool.
Very cool.
Nice.
And what platform again, if I missed it?
I don't know what platform it's on. I think it's probably PC and all the consoles, but I played it on the PlayStation.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, usually then it would be Xbox, PlayStation, PC, right? So
yeah. I've been playing Division 2. Don't know why.
I swear, after playing Suicide Squad, I told you I was thinking about reinstalling it.
It's still good.
People have been playing that game a lot, actually. I've got friends that are in it. I assume it's because they started making content for it again, right? Like they actually picked it up.
There's a lot of content.
Yeah, it has evolved a ton over the past few years.
Yeah,
there's so many.
I always liked Division 2
now.
It's fun, man.
It's a cool game.
Fun to get into it.
Speaking of games UB sticks with.
Yeah. I mean, they stick with a lot of other games. For Honor, we talked about before too. Speaking of which, like we were supposed to hear about Heartland like right at the start of the year, and I haven't heard a peep from Ubisoft.
Nothing.
What
Nope.
the hell happened?
Heartland.
Division,
Division.
Heartland. That's the next Division game.
Oh, it's the new expansion. Okay.
Well, it's a
thought it was
free to
like
play.
Yeah.
Like takes Division into the kind of open world survival / royale. You know, it's kind of one of those.
It's a new game, or it's
mashups.
just
Yeah, it's
a
a whole
new
different game.
It's a new game.
Oh, okay. I haven't kept
Yeah.
up with it. I actually used to cover Division 2 a while, and then they stopped making content for it like randomly, and then it took them a while, and then they it seems like they're back at it again. But they do that with their live service games in a way that I don't see a lot of other live service games doing. They take breaks sometimes. It's very odd. But the fans come back
around for development, right? Like they probably
Yeah.
move to help with something else.
It is impressive that their fans come back though, because you guys are not the first group I've heard like, oh, I'm back in Division 2. Like I have personal friends that are playing it. And I'm like, really? You guys are back in that? That's crazy. So good for them.
A lot of
Yeah.
fun. I also been
Nice.
playing for some reason. I'll tell you what. Actually, I know the reason. Ghost of Tsushima, because I watched 2 episodes of Shogun,
Shogun.
and I was like, "That's it. I gotta go play."
Just
the
wait
game.
for Rise of Ronin. It's like right around the corner.
I know that's coming out too. That's gonna be the next one. for
I was
sure.
gonna
Speaking of Tsushima, though, I do think in terms of Rebirth taking on different influences from the games that have come out and been successful, one of the things I really like about what Rebirth does in its open world is they do have a lot of, well, if there's an animal running around here and you follow them, it's going to take you to something interesting. That reminds me the most of Ghost of Tsushima.
The
Okay.
bosses.
Cool.
Great.
I've heard Shogun's great too. I haven't watched it yet, but
Go watch it. It's super
Excited.
for
good.
good things.
So
Yeah.
good. Better than Halo, but that's not saying.
I think IGN gave it a 10.
They
Showed
did.
it.
they?
at least
I
the
think
first
so.
episode, I think.
Yeah.
I can't remember, but
It's outstanding.
The movies and TV team, they give a lot of 10s. I don't know if that's common in the movie
They do
industry.
give a lot of 10s.
Yeah. I don't know if that's normal, but yeah, they seem to have very different rubric.
they did not give Halo a 10. Just to be clear.
That's weird. You'd
Yes.
think.
It's very strange.
You'd think. Not enough cheeks, I guess.
It's really what's missing.
Yeah. So, like I said, I haven't played much. What I have played is Elden Ring. Shadow of the Erd Tree obviously reignited that. I was playing it anyway, and then
It's your comfort food.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm doing like now that I know most of the world pretty well, I've been kind of following along with the guides and stuff, and just checking out NPC quests I hadn't finished before. And it is rather shocking, honestly, how you can have 400 hours in a game or around there and still be finding new stuff literally every day.
I've got a question for you, Ains.
Sure.
So if Elden Ring is your comfort food game, what actual comfort food is that game closest to in your estimation? This would be a fun question for everybody. What is your comfort food game? And if that game were an actual comfort food, which comfort food would it be?
What comfort food would Elden Ring be?
Enter the
Well,
food cast.
That'd be party.
Segue us right there.
I did it, boys.
You
I'm
did it.
bringing it back.
Probably be like
yeah.
a shepherd's pie or like a beef stew or something. That's where I
Beef
would
stew.
go. with that.
I think beef
Yeah.
stew. I think you got to go rustic to make it match.
Yeah,
Elden
it's got to be
Ring.
hearty.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Yeah, shepherd's pie seems a little too smooth for Elden Ring.
Yeah.
Also,
Okay, we'll go with a chunky
beef stew
or
being a comfort food, I think, is the first time I've ever heard that. You know, usually comfort food you get like chicken and waffles, biscuits and gravy. You know, maybe a dessert.
Dude, I was brought up by old English parents. My comfort food is literally like a roast and potatoes. No joke. That's
I was
like
going
my
to say
favorite thing in
beef
the world.
stew sounds pretty comfort foody to me.
Sounds.
That's your hearty, warms the belly kind of food.
I thought comfort food was supposed to be like bad for you, though. It doesn't sound particularly bad for you.
I think comfort food's defining characteristic is it provides comfort.
Yeah,
I mean, by definition.
by being bad for you, right? Like
Sounds like
comfort
it
more-
could be accurate.
Yeah, it might be right.
my thinking was it provides more comfort than nutrition is my interpretation of the phrase.
I mean, it can be. That's a very San Franciscan attitude, I think. But I think it's primarily focused around providing you comfort.
Interesting. All right.
Yeah.
My comfort game right now is probably Skull and Bones. I mean, like that's what
Skull
I
and
just
Bones.
do when I don't want to engage like fully and be tense about things. I'm playing Skull and Bones. Not that I'm not
would that be
dying
like,
a lot because there's some hard challenges in that game.
Can you ride
It
a
would have to
dolphin
be-
in
It
Skull
have to
and
be
Bones?
something with fish in it, maybe. I don't know. Could sushi be a comfort food? I don't know.
This
Too
doesn't-
elevated.
It doesn't feel like a sushi thing.
Yeah,
To
it's too
me,
elevated. Fish and chips.
thinking of Skull and Bones, it would be something like tropical, right? Like oranges, something to hold off the scurvy.
Oranges is a comfort food. That's insane. That is insane, bro. That's crazy. No, I had the perfect
like a
answer
fruit
for you.
plate,
It's,
you know?
it's fish and chips. Fish and chips, bro.
Dude, I'll give him fish and chips. I don't know where you went with oranges.
Oranges? This guy's eating oranges as a comfort food.
A fruit cup.
Did you just
from
get
Del
off of your
Monte?
little league
Yeah.
football practice? You got.
I'm in
orange
the Indian
slices
Ocean.
from
It's
Mom?
probably like Indian food of some kind.
You know what I wanted to
Samosas.
bring up actually about Skull and Bones that I have no one in my life to engage with except for you, Hogue, which is it's really weird to me that it canonically takes place in the Indian Ocean. There's the coast of Africa on one side, but then there's a not India country. And instead of the East India Trading Company, they have the DMC, and there's like none of the factions are real, but the continents and the locations are real. It's super weird to me. It's like they kind of went realistic.
We can
Yeah.
absolutely comment on that because I think it's interesting too. They have like all right, we got to have France and Holland there. We got to have these various
They have
things
real
that give it the
countries,
flavor
too.
of the 17th century. But instead of the real things, we're going to make it La Compagnie and
Yeah.
the DMC. And then, we're going to have some what amounts to the natives are here.
Exactly. And then they also have a
iguana.
You're very clearly in Madagascar, but they call it the Red Isle. They just changed the name for it too. It's just a weird like mix of real historical and completely made up that is
They didn't want to
uncommon in-
license Madagascar. That license is
Yeah,
rough.
I guess so, right? I didn't realize they
I
were
think it
charging
allows
a
you to have
premium.
some of the backstabbing and betrayal, right? Like you don't have to bring in your feelings about France proper necessarily to talk about
True.
La Compagnie.
It also allows you to avoid the whole East India Trading Company creating, chattel slavery and stuff like that. You can kind of just walk around that topic. And also it allows you to make up stuff and have like fake events like La Peste invading, which isn't real. So I get it, but if it were me, I would have just made up everything. I don't know why they chose like a real world location and there's like Africa and then there's like the country of France, but then there's
Because I think it gives you the flavor, right? It gives you the proper flavor. You want to see those flags flying. You want to see the French flag and the Dutch flag. I mean, interestingly, Britain isn't involved, as best I can tell. So that's the one thing that is not there. But yeah, it is also interesting from a kind of
to be like the DMC kind of, because the DMC is very clearly like East India Trading Company, which is
the DMC is the Dutch.
I know they're the Dutch, but I feel like they just combined them in terms of how they behave in the game. But I don't know.
Yeah,
it is a weird decision. Yeah.
I don't think the clan of Farah is anything in particular, other than
we're just having a historical chat. We're just talking about history, guys.
This began with oranges, I will remind you.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, folks. Skull and Bones is really cool, and they've made a number of interesting decisions making it, and you should check them out just to see the interesting decisions. And because we need more players, or else my game's going to go away.
I think it is going to go away.
Come into Skull and Bones.
I feel like I'm investing in a sinking ship, pun intended, and it's got me a little scared because I'm like, man, I put a lot of hours in this, and I don't even know if it's going to make it. Kind of sucks.
Yeah,
I really think it was.
Squad.
I really think it was that the colonial powers in the area and operating in the area is what gives some of the flavor to the age of piracy. So you have to have them present, and then you want them to be fictionalized so you can tell some stories.
That's fair. I do like shooting down French ships.
Who doesn't?
Also in Skull and Bones.
You sound very English.
Yeah.
You stepped on his joke, but it was funny.
Yeah.
So the English are in the game.
Yeah. You are them. Well, the English are in the game because like Spurlock also references like New York City and like
New York City is definitely in the game, and it's
New York City's in the game. He references that he is from Britain. Like it's just weird, man. They make weird decisions in the game.
But you're right, Ains. Britain is primarily represented by the pirates.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. All right.
Right on.
I believe never mind. That was going to be a bad joke.
Okay, one more Skull and Bones thing I have to bring up. When you get back from your adventures, they cheer for you, or sometimes they'll boo for you if you had an unsuccessful voyage. And my favorite thing is the voice acting in this game is that they go, "Woo," like they're being sarcastic. It sounds like they're being very sarcastic, like they're very unenthusiastic when they cheer for you. Woohoo! Like it sounds like they're making fun of you. It's very funny to me. Every time I hear it, I have to mimic it, and Dee laughs at me because she's just like, dude,
For
they
record,
do not like you. They're not
for
impressed.
record, that group is called the Hecklers.
The Hecklers.
And
yeah.
And Travis has some experience with hecklers, I think.
I do.
Yeah.
Boy, do
He's
I.
like, this sounds awkwardly familiar to me right
yeah,
now.
I have. Why does this sound like my entire comedy career? Interesting. Woohoo!
All right.
Thanks, Mom. That was a joke where my mom's in the audience, and even she's not willing to cheer for me.
Alex, let's catch up on these, and we'll move on to our big topic.
Yeah, Rebirth is legit. My biggest problem with the visual quality and performance is in performance mode. It's blurry.
It's super blurry. It doesn't seem like it's running right.
Yeah, they said, like they said, there's an update coming for it. So yeah, something went.
It's got to be
wrong with it.
I will wait for that then.
Fair enough, Alex. Hope you're enjoying your time, my friend. And Pampa in the house.
Pampa with the $5. What comfort food is Halo rank?
Something that's about 3 weeks expired that will probably poison you and send you to the hospital.
I gotta believe it's onion rings.
Are they
onion rings?
Nice.
Onion rings, the most normalized ring-shaped food, and it's
a Halo
comfort food. It's fried.
I think that's a great answer, Oak. That is it.
It's a good answer. What Pampa, because I play Halo with Pampa several times per week, what he's getting at here is Halo rank literally sucks the soul out of your body. It crushes you over and over and over again. So
it's like Burger King. Yeah.
maybe spending like $30 at Taco Bell.
Yeah.
It would be Halo rank. Yeah, that's about what it does to you.
Not even sure that's a box of tacos nowadays.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah, actually I haven't been in about 20 years, so I have no idea what the economy
is. What's wrong with you?
$30 used to buy you about like, a truckload of food at Taco Bell, but
$30 at Taco Bell used to be enough to kill you.
Yeah, pretty much. Did you say what's wrong with me because I
don't
go to Taco Bell?
Yes, you have to eat it at least once a month just to keep your body up. You know, I mean, it's just something you do.
What? No.
It's not good, but you got to do it.
I can't do Taco Bell anymore either, Dan. Sorry.
No, absolutely not. It's Bob, thank you as always, man.
I think Taco Bell's illegal in my state. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that might be true. Yeah.
It's the opposite of Panera. They have to pay $40.
We actually have a what is considered the best Taco Bell in the country. It's on the beach, and my buddy Nick is getting married there next year, and I'm going to be his best man. So it's very
reliably informed. I'm reliably informed that the best Taco Bell is in Nashville.
What's that one?
That Taco Bell has like a full bar and is like a giant restaurant environment.
Oh yeah,
I mean, there in San Francisco.
This one has a bar.
The best, apparently.
I was just gonna say, Travis conveniently went from I think Taco Bell's illegal, and then all the way to we actually have the best Taco Bell in the country.
This is what I hear. This is what I hear. Again, I have not been there, but I'm told it's small. It's got a bar, and it's like it's literally on the beach. Like there's like sand in front of it, and apparently it's a very idyllic Taco Bell if you're into that. That's what I'm told. I do not know.
By the way, did you know that BK Burger King, because you mentioned it, Dan, they have BK burger bars too, because we have one here in Kansas City where it's like an adult Burger King where they have a full bar and everything too.
They have that.
That I did not know.
Taco Bell, the same thing. It's down in Westport.
That's terrible.
New one. Yeah.
Taco Bell Cantina, it's right, the ones with the alcohol.
That's what it's called.
We do not have adult BKs though. That is news to me. We definitely do not have those in the state.
No.
Taco Bell Cantina.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Get on it.
Like
sounds like
think of all the other actual Mexican places and cantinas you'd have to pass up to go to a Taco Bell.
It sounds like the world's worst ad placement in the new Star Wars movie. This is the Taco Bell Cantina. It's like, well, did they really have to change that, Lucas? Yet another special edition, I see.
It's like the Demolition Man Star Wars.
I do agree, though. You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy than in the Taco Bell Cantina, for sure.
Oh my god, I bet you're right there. Midnight Jury with the 1 season gaming membership, always helping us out over here, Jury. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate you. All right, guys, let's talk about Wicked Inside, because I have been waiting to talk about this. And I know Travis, I know IGN had some coverage of this. I know it is GI, Game Informer's covered this month as well. So, No Rest for the Wicked is an upcoming ARPG from Moon Studios, who did the Ori games. If you watch the Wicked Inside, which was about a 20-25 minute show this week, where they really kind of showed off the game, the gameplay, the systems, etc. Just to kind of set us up for discussion here, I'll kind of talk through the high level in case anyone listening or watching hasn't seen it. They talked about how after they created Ori and the Blind Forest, their ambition was to create an ARPG, because they said that ARPGs like Diablo, like Path of Exile, etc., are kind of like a studio favorite. A bunch of people in the studio love and play ARPGs often. So they started kind of going down the route of designing it, but then they decided instead to make Ori Will and the Wisps, of course, which they went on and they created a spectacular game, Will the Wisps. But they said like their kind of dream and plan of creating the ARPG never went away. So that's what they've been working on since Will of the Wisps was released. That's a pain in the ass sentence to say. So anyway, they kind of cover this and very high level, basically. It's going to go into early access on April 18th on PC only. So it's starting out PC only, but they've already confirmed it's, in production for consoles, of course. It is a handcrafted artistic world. So there's no procedural generation. Everything is designed, by an artist. It has a soft class system, meaning that unlike, say, like Diablo, where you pick your class right at the start and build down a skill tree based on that class, you kind of instead choose your choose your stats and kind of build it as you go. The pace and combat's what?
Listen, by the way, soft class system sounds like what we have in our country.
Oh my goodness.
Just a joke came to me. How you say soft class system? I was like, that sounds familiar. I think I know that.
Fair enough. The pace and combat, which is going to either excite you or turn some people off. And in the Game Informer preview, they say this was literally told to the previewers that this is their inspiration, is Dark Souls. The Dark Souls kind of combat and pace is what the game is about. So if you think of Diablo, where you're at times like crushing like dozens and dozens at a time of enemies, right? Like this fast pace. This is much more methodical, where you'll most likely see anywhere from 1 to a handful of enemies at once, because the whole system, as they said, is built around animation and frames. So again, similar to Dark Souls, where you have to plan your attacks, you have to kind of either parry or dodge enemy attacks, and the whole system is built in that vein.
Yep.
I retract my.
And there's obviously a lot more info out there. If you check out IGN, you check out Game Informer, if you go to their site, there's a whole bunch of things about it too. So, they talk about how you have fast and light builds, you have balanced builds, you have your slow and mighty builds. And they talk about the story and the setting and all of this. But anyway, this immediately, as you can imagine, you're talking about a loot-based ARPG that is inspired by Dark Souls. This immediately shot to the top of my most wanted list.
I know, it's like they tried to make a game for you specifically. It's all your favorite keywords. Yeah.
It looks absolutely fantastic. I love the art style. I really like the way they talked about loot. So it's not this kind of typical system of white, blue, purple, legendary, etc. It has those type of things to it, but the way they do it's a little different. So for instance, white items are general items, but they have extra slots, so you can customize them yourself and add abilities to them and kind of bonuses to them how you want. Whereas like purple items are really powerful, but they also have a curse to them. So they will give you a bonus in one area, but a detriment in another. And then there are uniques, right, that you can find that play into specific builds and stuff like that. And you can repurpose all the items. So you can kind of break them down and modify other items as you see fit. And you can also modify them with the attack style. So like, for instance, when you get a sword, it won't necessarily always swing just like a standard sword. You can modify it to swing in certain ways or to attack and perform in different ways based on how you want to build. So it looks like there's a ton of customization, which sounds really cool. So I'll kind of stop there. Did you guys get a chance to watch the inside, the 20-minute overview?
I didn't see that video, but I did obviously see a lot of this game when it was our IGN first game last month, and I think you said it was
Yes.
Game Informer's cover story this month in March, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So obviously we got a lot of coverage on this, but yeah, the our talented UK editor Matt Purslow did the IGN first month-long coverage, which I thought was really a great way to kind of debut a lot of this game's vision. And then obviously because it combines, as you said, Ains, Dark Souls and ARPG, that immediately struck a chord with my boss, one of my bosses, Ryan McCaffrey, who just got done doing a hands-on preview. So he actually got to play the game a little bit. And I think his headline was something like it looks like Diablo 4 and plays like Dark Souls, which is a good headline and sells a lot of people, especially if you are an Ains type person or a Ryan McCaffrey type person, who I think Diablo 4 was his game of the year last year. Yeah, it was. It looks very cool. I love that it's unique. This is a studio that has shown that they can do some pretty cool stuff with a little bit of genre blending, whether it's platformer, Metroidvania stuff that they do with Ori, or this new idea, which I think is really cool. But I will definitely be playing this one, and I'm very excited about it. And I do need to watch that inside. I didn't even know that happened, to be honest. I thought all the news was coming from outlets. That seems to be their strategy. Is they're just given a lot of
they partnered with a
access.
bunch of big creators too.
Yeah. That's cool.
But the inside was Thursday, I believe. Like I said, it's about 20 minutes longer, so it's worth watching because they show a lot of the game. And I have Wesley LeBlanc, shout out to Wes from Game Informer, to his thing up, and he said, with a field of view, meaning the isometric view, it might have you thinking it feels like Diablo, but it's much more in line with the challenge and pace of Dark Souls. He goes, just a note, I know it's a tired comparison, but the game's lead developers literally told us that From's games inspired this one. So, you're going to hear that a lot, but it's not just us saying it. It's literally from the developers themselves. So, I don't know. As I already said, this is way up my alley. Hogue, I'm kind of interested to see where you think on it, because you obviously love Diablo. We talk about Diablo 4 a lot. That's right down your alley, but you're also, as we've joked many times here, not a huge Souls guy. So kind of combining an ARPG isometric experience, but with a more slower, methodical, challenging, in theory anyway, game like Souls. How's that stand with you in theory?
Well, honestly, I think one of the most important things about an ARPG for me is how it looks. You're going to be in that world a lot. And the thing that jumps off the page when I look at this game is that it looks really cool and interesting from a visual perspective. And so I am interested in playing that game. I'm a little less interested when I hear you describe it as a Souls type game, but I don't have any particular issue with more one-on-one interactions and having that be part of your battle system. I don't need 6,000 spine quills to hit. That's not necessarily a requirement of an ARPG for me. So I'm essentially kind of holding my judgment until I actually get to play it, because even everything you described is more kind of a design philosophy that you'll have to see work in practice. What do those uniques do? How do they interact with things? What are those curses? How does the loot progression work? What are the enemies that you're interacting with on a one-to-one basis? It's a little easier for me to kind of evaluate a Diablo 4 expansion or Diablo 5 as a notion in my head than what has been described to me. And I didn't watch this video yet, so I will also hold on that, because I think the videos for Suicide Squad I've mentioned in this space before really helped me understand what they were aiming at and really helped me enjoy the game more than I think others did. So I want to see that game developer diary type video. And if it's got a lot of that insight, that will be enjoyable for me to watch. But I don't know yet right now. I was not as big a fan of Ori as others. I think it's gorgeous. But I didn't love some of the level design or combat that's actually in that game. So I think they get I think they get a lot of leeway. Moon does with being gorgeous, and I think Wicked looks gorgeous. But I'm not sure that I will actually love the game when it comes out. So I'm hopeful, but I'm not as excited as Travis or you, Ains.
Okay.
and I am
Dan,
not
we know
excited at all. So there's that.
You're not excited because of it having kind of Souls reference?
I mean, it depends on how deep it is. I mean, I like ARPGs. I mean,
Yeah.
I do enjoy Diablo, and I guess Division 2 maybe is that maybe an ARPG. But I'm once you say Soulsborne stuff, I mean, I'm immediately out. I mean, I don't play as many and try as many games anymore as I used to, so it's really got to grab me before I even make the purchase at this point. Something that I know I will play.
Yeah.
I mean, I just, it's just not going to be my bag. I enjoyed Ori but it was tough. It was really hard, but it's not, I don't know if I describe it as Souls like, side scrolling game or anything. It's just really a tough side scroller.
Yeah, it's not Souls like, but it is difficult, which I think shows that they could make a difficult game.
Yeah, they could.
Like
yeah, it might be awesome. I have no idea, but yeah.
My gut says this will be a winner, and I think that both critically and commercially. I just don't know it for certain based on what I've seen so far, which is not a lot.
Yeah. So just to tie a little more about some of the other comments they have had about the game design itself. So they did not design it point and click. They much wanted to be more of a kind of an open experience. So they actually recommend playing it with controller, though you can of course play it with a keyboard and mouse. It has, they said weapons are unique. No two are alike. So each weapon has its own stance, can have different affixes, can be optimized by various vendors and changed, like I was mentioning. So, you can kind of play around with this as you see fit. The other thing I forgot to mention is, and doesn't interest me at all, but I'm sure it will some people, is you're in this place called Sacrament. It's the city, whatever, but you can buy your own house in the city and real estate, if you will, and you can customize that as you see fit, right? So it has one of those systems where you buy and craft furniture, but on top of all that stuff, you can modify your own look and your weapons and abilities as well, right? So you can buy like workbenches and that kind of stuff too and play around in that space. I don't know how it's going to be implemented, but they show some of that in the video.
I was going to say, as one that doesn't reject the premise on its face, that sounds like a battle pass type setup.
Yeah, so they didn't mention, they did show an early access roadmap, which I have right here. So they're launching April 18th. They plan to obviously develop an early access with feedback. Their first update is going to add multiplayer, so both co-op, and they've talked at a short stint, about PvP, I believe, if I'm going off of memory here. Then they're going to update.
They're not planning to launch with co-op or PvP?
It said, I don't believe so. I think it says update 1 adds multiplayer, but they don't have dates here either. So this seems to be true early access in that sense.
Well, this is hot, right? I mean, like they just delayed the full release, even notions of it, out of this year, right? So
yeah, they have not mentioned the full release right now. Yeah, other than early access on the 18th. They said update 2 is going to be called The Breach, which will add new areas. So kind of like an actual expansion, right? New areas, enemies, blah, blah, blah. And then beyond that, it just says further updates. So, we'll kind of see what this timeline of development looks like as it goes. But
sounds like they are doing the work then.
Yeah, I mean, regardless, they seem it looks fantastic. They seem obviously dedicated to it. Moon is a studio that does one game at a time, right? So this is obviously their focus. And I'm just obviously hugely excited about it. So we'll see. And it's only a little over a month away, which is kind of crazy. So I'm glad they came out and did this inside this kind of overview and then didn't say like early access begins in October. You know what I mean? Like I'm glad that it's a month away so that you kind of have it fresh in your mind and can kind of jump in and start playing around with it.
Oh, yeah. No, and I'm happy for the people that'll play it in early access. I am not going to be one of them. I'm not an early access guy in general, but especially for a game that's so requires a kind of perfection of design and mathematics to really make the fun pop out. I'm going to let you all beta that for me.
Fair enough.
You played Pal World.
I did play Pal World, but
Early
Pal World
access.
again is a design that I don't think needs a lot of tweaks and changes. And an ARPG that is going to have a multi-leveled loot system is where I definitely don't want to live in early access. For me personally, I'm glad that they're doing it. I'm hopeful that you guys all have a great time if you play it in early access. Mostly I avoid early access games.
I kind of do the same as well.
Fair enough. I will certainly be checking it out for us. So, all
Oh, yeah.
right, that was No Rest with the Wicked. So again, that's April 18th, PC only to start. So you can check
Am
that
I
out.
the only one that has like that theme song from the original Borderlands play when I hear the name of
Yeah.
that game?
No, for sure.
Classic.
Me too.
Absolutely classic. Yeah.
I like how
That
that's
maybe
where you know that song from, by the way. That's pretty funny.
I think
It's the
I
Borderlands
think I
song.
heard it. I think I heard it in other contexts, in like this in media at the same time, but
Mhm.
it stuck
Yeah.
with me from Borderlands.
that group got really
Nice.
well known at the time. I don't even remember the group's name.
They
Is
did.
it elephant
Yeah,
something?
Yes,
Something
they have, a,
elephant?
it
they,
is.
have, they have a couple songs, and they're all
Yeah,
they kind of sound the same
it's been a while.
to me.
All right. So I wanted to jump over and talk about more layoffs this week. So we got kind of two big companies, obviously, talking about it, combined with everything else we've had so far of the past several weeks. So this week, PlayStation came out and said that they are laying off about how many was it?
900.
people. Yeah, 900 people. So as part of that, they are closing the London studio entirely. They have made reductions at Naughty Dog, Insomniac, Gorilla, and Firesprite, along with various across PlayStation or SIE technology support and creative teams, is what they say on their official press release. Some game projects have been canceled. We've talked a lot here around their roadmap over the next few years, the whole live service approach, etc. So some apparently of those projects have been canceled. Specifically, they did call out that Twisted Metal has been canceled, which pisses me off. But
Well, Jason Schreier called that out. Did Sony call that out? I have no reason to disbelieve Jason on that, but did Sony officially mention that game?
it's a good question, Hogue. I did go through
I
it
don't
this
think Sony
morning.
even announced it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah,
So,
you can't
but
cancel
to
a
your
game
point, I have
never
no reason not to believe Jason. He's
No,
pretty reliable
Jason's
when it comes
almost
to that
certainly
kind of
right
stuff.
on that. I just don't think it's officially from Sony.
Fair, very fair. And so let's stay on PlayStation then before we get to EA. So, this message comes from Herman Holst. We know that April actually, so by next month, Jim Ryan will be gone, right? Because that's when his kind of tenure, we already talked about his announcement of leaving, is over. So this comes from Herman Holst around First Party. And basically the statement, of course, I don't have it up in front of me, but basically the statement was around they are restructuring to better align with, the future of where they believe players want to engage with from a PlayStation perspective, and that they have to make different investments into that future. This is a weird one for me because we have talked quite a lot about PlayStation on this show over the past, I would say, probably year plus, of PlayStation's direction, what they're doing with first party. They're kind of big, what they're known for, these third party cinematic games. Spider-Man 2, third person. Sorry. Yes. Third party, third person. Spider-Man 2
This
being
year, though,
a
third party also
big sales success, but also reportedly costing an enormous amount to make, right? And we've also heard about their direction with where they wanted to go with live service, ongoing game development. We had Last of Us Factions being officially canceled, and seemingly kind of all over the place with what they're doing. And as we know, they have announced based on their earnings report that there will be no major first party release prior to the second quarter of 2025, with no specific game being called out yet. So this comes at an interesting time. I think that on top of that, just a little anecdote around London Studio. So London Studio was expanded recently and supposed to be helping with a lot of the PSVR 2 development. So I don't really know what's going on here with PlayStation, but it definitely seems like they are. And Hogue, you've alluded to this several times over the past several months, but around, there are things where there's smoke, there's fire sort of thing going on at PlayStation. And it's
There's
not
a change
that I
in
don't.
executive. I mean, it's
Yes.
not so surprising when you have the head of the ship changing directions in certain important
course.
ways. We don't get to see a lot of the behind the scenes from afar because games are more secretive than other industries, especially many pop culture industries. But this isn't that big of a surprise to me that things are changing internally when you have that kind of change in leadership. I think what's a little bit more surprising to me is that they don't appear to have even the kind of safety net projects to announce that you would expect. Like Nintendo, when they go into a lull, and this year is arguably a lull for them, still winds up having remakes and things that are ready to be announced and have you have some kind of runway for the next 9 months so that you know that the company still exists. Sony is basically just opting out. And I think some of that is because they invested so heavily in the notion that the game industry wanted cinematic Last of Us games that wound up in the 4K era being the most expensive way that you can possibly approach game development. And what I would impress upon people when they talk about things like Spider-Man 2, which obviously I have my own feelings about, I think people have heard me talk about that game here. Even if you adore Spider-Man 2, what gaming is facing right now is something similar to what Hollywood faces on a fairly regular cycle, which is that the overall gross revenue of a successful project like a Spider-Man 2 isn't as important as the net revenue of that project, right? And we haven't talked enough about the cost side of the equation of these 4K third-person action adventure games that Sony has made their bread and butter. I'm happy they exist for the most part, but they are a very difficult way to make money. So PlayStation's margins as against something like Nintendo that is making hugely successful games that look like Tears of the Kingdom at 720p or whatever it is that game outputs, is making more money even if they sell fewer units than Spider-Man 2. And Sony is looking at this now outside of Jim Ryan's leadership, right? New set of eyes, new executive management function comes in and says, why are we doing this? Why are we making these things? Why are we spending 200 million to make 220 when we could spend 40 and make another Helldivers or whatever it is that we're going to look at? So you have all of these people coming off. And what I saw most frequently in my DMs and emails on this topic this week was like jobs being lost at Insomniac, right? And arguably Insomniac's the only company that's really shown up for this generation for Sony. And I understand, and I'm very sympathetic, certainly to the people whose lives are affected. But from a money standpoint, from the actual making of money through the products that you're selling, this approach from Sony has never made a ton of sense to me. You're putting all your eggs in one basket, and it's the most expensive basket you could find.
Which, by the way, to various degrees, Sean Layden was preaching about years ago that it was heading that way, right? That was apparently at the time a lot of the kind of debate internally with PlayStation was around exactly that the cost of developing these big AAA blockbuster cinematic games, like you said, was growing exponentially, and it was unsustainable. And it feels
I've
like
sat here and said I don't think
happened.
it's necessary, right? I mean, to some extent, you've conditioned the market, so that's it's a problem of your own making. But I don't think it's necessary. I think Nintendo continues to show that game design wins overall. And what am I splitting my time between? Skull and Bones and Rebirth and Balatro this week. And some of those are more expensive than others, folks.
I've been playing that game a lot.
It's awesome.
Some of those are more expensive than others.
Tell me Balatro didn't cost the same as Spider-Man 2? I don't believe you, sir.
I'm telling you, Balatro might have cost less than some of the mini games in Spider-Man 2.
Well, you're not
true.
joking. Yes, you're not joking at all. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the context there, and I do not know Sony's particulars, as I think probably none of us know really the specifics about how this is going. But I think we already talked about this. I don't know if Hogue was there for that episode where I gave my opinions on what these layoffs are really about, and I would extend those sentiments to the current round of layoffs as well, in that these companies are almost without exception profitable, and I don't believe them for the reasons that they're laying these people off. I think it is more about squeezing more profit out of existing companies than it is about addressing actual problems with the business. And I think it is a fad more than anything else, a business fad. And yeah, I continue to think that it's bad and short-sighted, and primarily driven by the trend of wanting to get more revenue and out of really just pure greed. But that's just me.
You think this is more in line with some of the stuff we've seen in other industries, which we are seeing actively? You think gaming's more in line with that than actual addressing issues per se with what's going on with their game?
I do. I mean, I think there's a little bit of like the overhiring during COVID effect, but I think that that's probably minor, and most of the companies that are citing that are making money, and more money than they've ever made in many cases, and then are laying people off. And I really think, I mean, I know that it's currently trendy, and especially when you look at the horizon of the economic situation, to say, yeah, we should lean up. It's the safe move. I get that it's people sometimes being pragmatic, but it is. I think it is primarily driven by the fact that a lot of companies are doing it, and now there's an expectation in boardrooms and whatnot that you are going to increase your margins by reducing headcount. I just think it's the current business trend right now, and I think a lot of these layoffs are related to that.
Well, I would say that happens as a trend because there's a negative impact to layoffs. People evaluate your company as somehow failing or otherwise going in a bad direction. And if everybody else is doing it, you get a little bit of a discount on that negativity towards your company. That absolutely happens. That is correct. Do I think that that is just greed? No, I don't. I think that you can take steps on an accelerated timeline or that you wouldn't otherwise take because the environment is such that it is a softer landing spot for you to do those things. But I think these companies are looking at an industry that is not the way they thought it would look, especially during the pandemic, and saying, we're going to need to get to here by 2027. Now is the right time to do it. And I don't view things quite the same way as Travis, while still mostly agreeing with you about why this is happening in these kind of waves, because it makes sense. And by the way, folks, we're entering March. For those of you that don't know, that's the end of a fiscal quarter, and for a lot of these companies, the end of a fiscal year. So this is a month of reckoning. This is not going to get less this month.
Which I think further supports Travis's argument, right? Is that this is a bottom line play at the end of the day more than anything else, driven by actual need.
Yeah. I mean, less profitable is still profitable. I think people forget that.
Okay, but again, I mean, I've said this a lot on my channel, right? These companies are not jobs programs. The idea is to make as much money as possible by lowering costs and increasing revenue. So to the extent that that's the right play for your return on investment and it makes your company a more profitable and more streamlined endeavor, that's the right play whenever it happens. You say that that's only greed, and to some extent that's true, but again, it's other people's money, right? Management is not supposed to do whatever it wants with that money.
I don't have a problem with companies acting in their own self-interest or with the idea that they're not jobs programs. My issue is in the short-sightedness of firing the people upon which your product is created, and the idea that, well, we can pump up the supposed margins right now, and then later when we actually need to make more product, we'll probably have to hire additional people. To me, it's just it's like a little bit of a mini game, like playing to the meta of business in a way that I don't think actually helps your company. And that's my problem with it, is that I don't think these companies are going to be I don't think these companies are going to be made better by letting go of their talented employees when they clearly, those employees are integral in the profit that they've made in the games that are coming out of that. So that's my issue.
I think that happens a lot. I think that is well stated. And I do think that management in all sorts of industries, including gaming, can be more short-term thinking than long-term in a way that is overly detrimental to the value of their entire enterprise. But I do think the Sony layoffs are probably a little different in that they appear to be making a complete strategic shift behind the scenes. Like, that's all of the hints that we get from afar, is that they're going in a different direction than Captain Jim would have taken them had he continued in that position.
Jim.
Right, that might be right. I don't know the specifics of PlayStation. It's just kind of my general feeling about all of this bullshit.
Yeah.
And
layoffs suck. And I don't disagree with anybody that says management is sometimes too short-sighted. And sometimes that's driven by the stock price system and secondary transactions and everything else. Those are valid critiques. I just don't view it as the only critique of the situation.
Yeah,
agree.
I agree.
Go ahead.
And I think that you're right, Hope. I think it's more of a industry shift. Maybe we're seeing, and we don't know all the specifics right now, but it sounds like Sony's going in a whole different direction. I think a lot of it, to Travis's point, at least some of it was the overhiring. I mean, of very talented, people wanted that talent, so they gobbled them all up, and now we're getting to a point where it's just becoming unsustainable for these companies. They have to keep a certain amount of revenue coming in. The bottom line has to be the bottom line, whatever it is they decide it is. And it sucks for these people that are, basically in the firing line, and they just, Hopefully,
totally
but
sucks.
you
I don't
don't
want
want
anybody to hear me
see it.
differently on that.
Yeah,
And
you
these
don't want
people
to see
don't
it.
deserve that, and they're not the ones running the ship. But
No,
that is the nature of things.
I
as
don't
it
know
were.
if there'll be another big hiring boom like there was during the pandemic. Short of another pandemic, where you're going to have more people staying at home, more people, in front of their TVs, in front of their gaming systems, and doing a lot more of that stuff. So it's I don't know a whole lot about business, to be honest with you. I'm not a business guy, but just from the outside looking in, I just don't think that there's going to be another, big uptick in hiring, because it does sound like they're kind of going for in a different direction. But that's
Maybe
not to
not
say
from
that they're not
the-
going to still have these big, third person action adventure games. I think they still will. I think they're just going to have to figure out a way to do it. Maybe AI plays some kind of part in that. I don't know. Maybe, and that sucks, but for certain people.
If I were
But
in charge at Sony, and I'm not, to note for folks, but if I
I
were
am.
in charge,
Remember, I'm the new
Travis
president.
is. Yeah.
I would be aiming at what kind of double A type experiences, as we understand it right now, can I make in bulk, essentially, to have more lottery tickets, to have more chances to get in front of people's eyeballs at a more regular cadence than the once every 3 years Last of Us, on alternate years Last of Us remake model. So that's the direction I would take them in. And whether or not those are live services, I actually don't really care what the model is. Probably they're going to have live service elements because people have indicated that's where money is. But that's what I would be aimed at. That was one of the reasons why I actually thought the Twisted Metal getting canceled was interesting, but it might not have been turning out as a project, and might or might not have been more of a nostalgia play than anything else. So those are the kinds of things where you kind of have to take it on faith that they're evaluating things properly behind the scenes. And I'm interested in seeing what actually comes out of the Sony development teams in the future, because as of right this second, we don't know anything. We don't know what's being worked on at all.
We know they can do, we've seen their product in the past. We just don't know, what these layoffs, I think, are going to, or how it's going to affect those bigger projects, and, and stuff like that. But you're right. I mean, who the hell knows?
Well, long term, I think,
different.
to Travis's point, that the thing that the industry should be worried about is when you have these kinds of times of volatility, extreme volatility, in terms of jobs and layoffs, and on the ground for individuals making decisions about what to do with their lives, you run the risk of a full-on brain drain out of your industry, because you get people saying, no, you don't want to even do that with video games. And a lot of the skills that people have that make our video games for us are translatable into more kind of traditionally safe, hard, or serious programming jobs in real business. Right. So you're running the risk of, you're only going to get the crazies that are even willing to go into this area of volatility, and may or may not have the skill set that you need long term. Right. So the industry is kind of going through that, where I couldn't recommend anybody, that if I were a guidance counselor or even a business consultant, that to somebody that was thinking about what to do with their programming skills or even their artistic skills, and say video gaming is where you want to be, because it doesn't look like that right this second.
Yeah, part of what I was going to say in that vein is exactly that. And to your point too, Travis, is, what really annoys me about these types of decisions sometimes, having lived through them in major corporations as well, is the short-sightedness often. And to your exact point, Hogue, is that when you look at these decisions from a spreadsheet point of view, and you just do the simple math, you can often make them make sense, because financially 1 + 1 = 2. Where you don't see the downstream effects until years later, right, is exactly what you just said. You're losing institutional knowledge. You're losing a lot of things that will cause problems at various aspects of game development and studio structure and development, and a lot of other things that are not so easy to measure, but are absolutely real, right? And to your point, you get even further down the line, it goes to what you just said, which is around now you start to see doubt into, is this even the area I want to be in? Do I want to go somewhere else with my career? Are the younger people who are working towards a career in the space, do they even want to go into this route? And there's just a lot of things that happen downstream from these decisions that are not talked about as much as the decisions themselves. that have a negative impact on an industry or a company or various other aspects. And I think that just as important in that space too, because we've seen it is, and I think relevant to the conversation is some of the things we've seen around the problems some of these AAA games have had around cycling staff in and out, because you're losing that development knowledge, you're losing the system knowledge, you're losing a lot of things, and it creates a lot of problems. We saw that with Halo Infinite. We saw it now most recently with Forza Motorsport, a lot of that due to Microsoft's policies around contractors and how that staff was brought in and out repeatedly. Meanwhile, I think there was a story run this week around Rebirth, wasn't there? Correct me if I'm wrong, anyone, please. But something like 95% of the staff is the same from Remake to Rebirth that developed it. And, there's plenty of examples beyond Rebirth, of course, of where development studios staying together and that team staying together and that knowledge staying there, creating just, fantastic products because you
Seems like
have
that's
that
mostly
knowledge.
Nintendo.
Yeah, and Nintendo's probably a good example in various ways of that. So anyway, I always hate when I read these kind of very high level adjustments when they talk about straight staff numbers and numbers, because there's so much more to it than that, and it just drives me a little crazy.
I will say, I think there's a little bit of a bright spot with these layoffs, which is that, these large companies that are primarily the ones doing it were never going to be the creative leaders in the video games industry, and I would argue that they haven't been leaders in a long time, and that's kind of the process, right? You become a sequel factory by and large, and that's just sort of how it goes. My hope is that with a lot of these free agents, that entrepreneurs will take up the cause of creating more studios, and we'll get a renaissance of new single A or double A studios and people creating their own little industry, who have always been the drivers of the games industry, and I believe will continue to do so. And you kind of see that happening a little bit already with some of these companies that are seeking independence so that they don't have to be beholden to a big corporation shaving employees to meet some sort of board goal or whatever, which I think is really cool. We see that with a few studios. Apparently Gearbox maybe even is looking at that as an option, and I think that's good. I think new studios opening up can be potentially good. I think some of that will happen because the layoffs have been so massive that there's just a lot of like free talent out right now that people could scoop up. So I'm hopeful about that. I think that would be really cool. And honestly,
Sorry, I didn't mean to, Andrew. I was going to say you often mention this aspect of it, and I'm not challenging it. I agree with it, but I think it is a good thing to call out because you're right, and we do see that across the industry. It's almost a recycling of talent and a rethink in areas, and I think that's really good and beneficial to the industry. And I hope we do see a lot of that.
And the reason I bring it up a lot is because I see it as somebody who covers the industry. I talk with a lot of people who are making their first game. Like I just was at a studio this past week where I met a group of people who are getting ready to announce their first game, which is really cool. We have GDC starting in a couple weeks, which is in San Francisco. I'm going to be attending it and covering it. And that's the Game Developer Conference. For those who don't know, it's a lot of people sharing secrets and people who want to get into the industry. So there is a lot of passion around this. I think some people who are a little bit more pragmatic might be scared from the industry, but a lot of these people weren't in the industry for the money anyway. They were in it because they're creative, and that's how they want to choose. That's how they choose to use their hard-won skills and talent. And so I think there is a positive side to it a little bit. I don't want to downplay how bad layoffs are; they suck. But I kind of view a lot of these companies that are the perpetrator of it as being kind of creatively bankrupt anyway. I don't even know if that's the people you want to work for. So hopefully this will result in some better games and better companies emerging from the ashes. That's my hope.
While I might not call them creatively bankrupt, I will echo Travis's position that entrepreneurs are awesome and that the industry will continue to be dynamic. In fact, Electronic Arts and Activision are both companies that historically came from people leaving their, at that point, behemoth, unchanging institutions to go start something that they wanted to pursue. So, I mean, the video gaming industry is built on a history of creative people going and making their own things, and then sometimes becoming the villains, right? As the old Batman line goes. So I am hopeful that dynamism will continue. I'm a little worried that there's a little too much volatility right now, but I think we are at an inflection point that you could have seen coming, that I would argue that Microsoft in some ways, even if they didn't handle it perfectly, saw coming, with both the attempts to move out of some of the AAA space with the Xbox One and then later with Game Pass. But it is always kind of fear-inducing to look into the future and not see any notion of what it looks like. And certainly for people, that's the truth, and for institutions, that's the truth as well. And so you are seeing these companies, I think, try to do their best for the most part in looking to how they're going to navigate the future. And they're not all going to succeed. They're not all going to make the right decisions all the time. But I think that's the bulk of what we're seeing right now. And I certainly think Sony having a CEO change, changing their philosophies and strategies, and looking at a cost curve that honestly is completely unsustainable if you look at their financials, is trying to change what it is that they do. And is that going to be great for everybody? No. If you only loved cinematic AAA games, that might be a reduced output in the future. But I would argue that we're going to get more variety and a better class of game if they actually invest in doing that for us.
And I hope that comes to fruition for sure, because I'm probably in the minority, I would assume, who misses the days of PlayStation having more quirky games, more interesting games, more variety in the types of experience that they offer. This whole everything looks and feels the same with just a different UI type thing that we've gotten over the past decade does not interest me much at all, to be honest. It's not that they're bad games. I'm not saying that. It's just personal interest. Yeah. So, cool. Okay. Well, not cool, but that's PlayStation.
That's a capper to that segment. Cool.
Yeah. Right. Cool.
Can we get a super of cool over all of our faces?
Very similarly, everything we just discussed, pretty much, very similar to EA. So EA announced this week they're cutting 5% of their workforce, approximately 670 people, give or take. Reminder,
EA is big, folks.
Yeah, they're like 14,000 people, I believe, something like that, right? So this is after cutting 775 people, or nearly 800 people last year, which they said was restructuring. So
how many did they do this year?
Nearly 700.
Ooh.
Yeah. So they're doing the exact same thing, basically saying their statements around how there's.
You said 700 last year, 700 this year?
Approximately 775 last year, approximately 670 this year.
Oh my God. And you said they had 14,000 employees, which means that I can correctly describe what they did to their company as decimation. They reduced it by 1/10.
I knew that was coming when he was doing the math.
They decimated their company. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Any opportunity to use decimation correctly, I will take. That's fantastic.
Okay.
Nice job.
Well, you just topped me with the cool thing, so now we have decimation. Yeah.
Decimation.
Yeah.
We're a little bit more viewed. IGN reviewer cheers decimation of EA employees would be a spoiler.
Oh,
that's a headline.
Yeah, that's featured on Season Gaming tomorrow on front page, no doubt.
Yeah, just make the thumbnail Travis, like, like stepping on the EA logo.
Literally, you could write a headline called EA decimates its employee base, and it would be an accurate headline. That's all I'm saying. I'm excited personally as a writer. You don't get to.
For the headline, to be clear, for the word use, not the
Travis
actual
just
cutting.
Words and etymology. It's not about the jobs and the people in their lives.
Yeah, it's never about the people.
Words.
So the statement from the CEO of EA, Wilson, very similar to what Herman Hulst and Jim Ryan said. In his actual quote is, "This greater focus allows us to drive creativity, accelerate innovation, double down on biggest opportunities, including our owned IP, sports, and massive online communities, to deliver the entertainment players want today and tomorrow." So, yeah.
And there's another line about licensing, right? Like they're trying to get out of making licensing games as often.
Out of licensing as often. Yes.
Interesting. It's because
that's part of the Disney. That's a part of the Disney story, right? Because Disney's value in their IP is way down. I presume their rates and their aggressiveness in negotiating their IP licenses is not way down. And so if you're evaluating that, you say, is it that valuable for me to use Star Wars right now when I could develop something on my own? The answer is no, depending on what you're looking at from Disney.
The answer is no, because it was also reported that the Star Wars FPS being developed by Respawn has now been canceled.
Yeah, the Mandalorian one.
Yeah.
Which that game might have just not been working. But I think they said that they cited that one of the reasons they want to get away from licensing is because they can't do additional stuff with it, like DLC or side projects or whatever. It's like just a really complicated, it sucks to not own your stuff, especially when you're EA. That's like you're big enough to own your own IPs. It's weird that you're relying so much on somebody else's, but yeah.
Can't make a Star Wars Ultimate Team with cards and got to be able to do.
Oh yeah, a Star Wars.
Give it time, Dan. Give it time.
Yeah. Hey,
they couldn't do that because Disney had already had a license for mobile games separately. But yeah, and that's the thing about licensed games, folks. I mean, we all like to play in those universes sometimes, but is Ubisoft's Avatar game going to do better than a kind of naked new IP of a person playing an alien in its own environment? I would argue maybe not. So if you're evaluating these things again from a financial standpoint, and Disney's playing hardball and being a bear to work with, and I can tell you from experience that Disney's attorneys and lawyers on the IP side are difficult to work with in terms of the number of conversations you need to go through. And I'm not a game developer. I haven't worked on the creative side of these things. But certainly when you talk about a third-party licensor, they have an interest in making sure you don't screw up their IP. And Disney is well known as a company that is very, very serious about controlling how that IP is perceived in its various iterations in different forms like video games. So it wouldn't surprise me if EA just said, this is expensive. We don't actually think it's moving the needle on sales very much, and it's making everything more difficult on the ground than saying, okay, well, we're going to look at this company in a different way. So that doesn't surprise me, but it's obviously unfortunate for, again, everybody laid off, because it's another strategic change. And to Travis's point, some of these are happening because there is a reduction, a discount in the negativity facing these people making these decisions. But I do think, again, it sounds like a legitimate strategic change for the company.
You don't think they can move some of these, people away from these licensed IPs to, their money-making machines and FIFA and Madden, or...
Well, FIFA's not FIFA anymore to talk about licensing.
Well, yeah, whatever it is.
Or to the new IPs that they're claiming that they're going to shift to.
Yeah, like EA College Sports 2025 that I am super excited for. So
you got to pay for the lawyers for that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I'm again, it sucks watching these companies kind of get, but it just seems to be happening everywhere, and not just in gaming. I know the banking industry has cut back a lot of stuff. Hell, I saw Tyson Chicken close down a bunch of stuff. I mean, I love Tyson Chicken. I'm just saying. Bring
it back to food, folks.
Is it that everybody's hungry? I know it's like lunchtime for you guys when we record this. Is that why food always comes up?
It's just Dan.
Yeah, no, it's fair though. Certainly, media is going through a reorganization. Video gaming, tech in general. And has been
all the industries I'm in. Fun. It's all the industries I'm in. It's
gaming, tech, and media.
Yeah. Dude.
Hey, I told you my industry too. I went through a big round of layoffs in my company 6 months ago. So
you know what the world always needs? Lawyers.
No. No.
Travis is like a veto.
Tell me how your law degree treats you when we're living in the Mad Max universe. Then tell me. Tell me then, sir.
Probably about the same as your game reviews.
When there are no laws, I would like game reviews. I will. Yeah, critics are going to be in a tough spot too. Let me tell you. I actually have a couple notes, Mister, about how you ripped that guy's head off. It was a little derivative, I would say, of all the other head rippings we've seen recently. I'm not gonna do well. Really, who would do well? Insurance? No. No, definitely not. Dan will actually be the only one thriving because in the What do you do? What do you do in your free time? Eat.
Yeah,
You'll be
eat
killing it.
mostly.
Yeah, you'll
I'll
be killing it,
hunting.
dude.
Yeah.
Hey, that's gonna be super relevant.
Yeah.
I believe in you.
All right.
Oh man. Well, there we are. So that's the most recent. I think, as Hogue pointed out, or one of you pointed out, I don't think it'll be the last.
No.
So we're going to continue to see this for some time. But to your
think
point,
Not
if we
being
try
affected
to
by layoffs.
try to end this on a positive note, let's go with Travis's thought of hopefully we'll see some new studios pop up, some new projects, and some new ideas from the creatives
Or the
in
Mad
gaming
Max
industry.
universe. One or
Or
the
the Mad
other.
Max. Either way.
Nowhere in
Take
between.
a turn.
Nowhere in between.
Yeah.
Revolution of Renaissance and new industry, or Mad Max universe. Those are the
Is
Do
that
that
what
or
happens to the world
Thunderdome.
without video games? Is that like the opposite of that meme where the world is perfect without video games? We descend into Mad Max.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I
that's
think so.
fair. That's fair.
We'll be fighting over disc or game cartridges instead of oil. That's or water. Yeah, water and
They
oil.
do fight over
They fight
water
over
in
both.
Mad Max.
Water seems
They
like
fight
it's
over
important.
both because they need the
Yeah.
oil for the cars, right? The gas. They fight over gasoline and water, the two liquids.
Mm.
The two liquids.
The two liquids. I
Gasoline,
think on the
water.
periodic table of elements, it's gasoline and H2O.
Yeah, H2O, gasoline.
Gasoline.
That's
Yeah, I'll be honest. I don't know. Does anybody know the periodic for gasoline? I don't think it's up
There's a
there.
C in there.
Health
There's a
is not up
C in
there.
gasoline somewhere, I think.
Oh god. Let's get a couple of super chats here.
Oh wow! I didn't even know we had some. All right, Matt Houston with the $5 Canadian. Tiger Travis regarding a review of Population 1 VR was reviewed by IGN in 2019. Many things added since then. Great show, guys, as usual. Thank you. I don't know what the review
Population 1 is a VR game. This guy's asking us to re-review it.
Re-review it.
I have a hard enough time convincing IGN to review any VR games because they have a very small audience. So the idea of getting a re-review seems pretty unlikely, but boy, would I like to. So
yeah. Thank you, Matt.
What is
Appreciate you.
Population 1, Travis?
Population 1 is a what's the best way to describe it? I guess it's an action game, a shooter, kind of. It's a free to play, I think, or it went free to play. It's cool. It's interesting. I haven't played it in a while.
Is that what his icon is right here?
That is, I think that is Super Hot, which is different.
Oh, that's true. It could be Super Hot.
Yeah.
Super Hot's great.
Super Hot.
Yeah,
Super Hot VR is also awesome.
Yeah. By the way, Vintage and Hello Darkness coming in with C8H18 is gasoline there, Travis. So I don't know why you didn't know that. If you could memory banks, please.
I mean, it's a couple. I knew carbon was in there for sure, but yeah.
That's the dinosaur part.
Yep.
That's right. It's actually not dinosaurs. It's
oh dear God.
He knows.
Okay,
he knows
okay. Moving on.
It's not dinosaurs.
Matt, thank you very much. Boulder a la Richard.
Yep. $2.22. I love it. I want to thank you for being balanced with this. That's what we are.
What were we balanced on?
Very balanced.
I think the
layoffs.
conversation around the layoffs in the companies and what's going on in the industry. He or she had several comments in your chat, Hogue. So yep.
We were collectively balanced. Individually,
Yeah.
I don't know. We had on one side the bootlicker of Hogue, and then on my side the creatively bankrupt. I don't know. What was I? An anarchist? I don't know.
You joke, Travis. I am accused of being a corporate bootlicker fairly often, but again,
Oh, you thought I was joking?
I am a corporate lawyer.
Joking.
Thank you very much for the super chat. Good to see you. All right. So the only other thing I want to touch on today, guys, was around Toys for Bob, which kind of ties a little bit to what we were talking about, but I think is an interesting kind of footnote of things going on this week in the industry. Toys for Bob comes out, post official acquisition of Activision Blizzard by Microsoft, and they come out. On top of that, let's remind people that Toys for Bob a couple weeks ago officially closed their in-house studio, their building studio. And laid off about 35 to 40% of their staff. There are only about 100-person studio, so it's somewhere around 40 people, give or take. So they are now 60 or so staff members fully remote. but they announced this week that they are going independent. So they're shifting to becoming an independent studio with a possible partnership in some type of agreement with Microsoft, is all they said in their press release in some form. So kind of an interesting, it's not something I expected to see, but kind of interesting to note given everything going on that we just touched on.
So let me talk about this from a business standpoint a little bit. I think the last time people really saw
Is this corporate bootlicker talk, or is this?
Yes, this is corporate
sure.
bootlicker talk. I think the last time people really saw this was, or more prominently, was Bungie buying themselves out of Microsoft back in the day.
A long time ago.
So you can have a situation where a subsidiary says, "All right, you hold our equity. Here's our situation on the cap table and our finances. We want to buy ourselves from you," which is usually what we mean when we say you're going independent.
Mhm.
And that seems to be what happened here. Oftentimes, if one or the other party wants there to be a continued relationship in that context, you enter into a strategic partnership agreement of some kind at the same time.
Yep.
And that can be part of your purchase price, right? If you say, okay, Toys for Bob, you can buy yourselves out for X amount of dollars. You say, we don't have that. That's a difficult cash position for us to get in. What if we entered into a contract with you at the same time that has X amount of value to you, not in dollars, but how you're thinking about it? And so Toys for Bob looks to me from the outside, again, speculation, because we're not in the room and they haven't shared the agreement with us, to have entered into some kind of buyout agreement with Microsoft and a simultaneous strategic agreement that is being discussed in that press release. So I think that's what happened here. That doesn't mean that they're bound to Microsoft forever and ever, but it does mean that they've probably entered into something that they owe them to make or to work with them on in the short term as part of this agreement. So I know a lot of people ask me about, that seems weird. Why would you go independent and then partner with them at the same time? That's probably a part of the same negotiation.
Agree. And I can announce formally here first that it will be Banjo-Kazooie is what they're working on. So
Interesting theory.
Yeah.
They're gonna let a company go independent and then immediately give them one of their most beloved properties. Sounds correct.
Exactly.
To me.
Yes.
Somebody's got to do something with it.
You might be overranking Banjo-Kazooie, but I do love Banjo-Kazooie.
How dare you, sir?
I think it's beloved, but also past
Travis's
its time.
description of most beloved is maybe a little bit
It's
strong.
100% accurate.
I would say I think it is extremely beloved. I just think that it's also kind of its time has passed.
Okay. Both of you be quiet.
How many times do you see 3D platformers? But yeah,
Not enough.
I'm excited about this. I like to see a little bit of the independence happening. I hope that it works out for them. We've got some great studios and games out of people buying their own independence from their corporate overlords, including Dan's favorite, Hitman
Tyson
3.
Chicken? Oh, okay. No.
IO Interactive. They bought their independence and then bought the Hitman IP while they were at it. And now they're making a game you really like. So,
yep.
Yeah.
Well, they did that. And then they were like, we're going to work on a licensed game and do James Bond.
Yep. Immediately.
It's fair.
It's a good license.
I mean,
they're also
it's
hiring.
a good license, though. And, they, as we've said, they seem like the company that could do it justice. So we'll see.
Yep.
I am very hopeful for them. But yeah, I love Toys for Bob. I have for a long time. The people that founded that company were the folks that made Star Control 2, which I know you've heard me talk about a lot.
Never heard of it.
And so I am hopeful for them as well. I just hope that they continue to make good games and get the opportunity to make good games while they're out on their own. It's hard to be a 60-person fully remote team and go and work with these bigger corporations like Microsoft on these things. So hopefully everything works out great for them. But this is a bit of a bet on themselves that I think I like to see as an entrepreneur fan and am a little bit cautious of as a risk-averse lawyer man.
Yeah. I will point out, I believe someone can correct me again, but I'm pretty sure Moon Studios is a fully remote studio and has been for a very long time, right?
It was one of the original. It was one of the original fully remote studios.
Yeah. So hopefully, Toys for Bob, I'll echo your sentiments that I hope they pull this off and do well and create a great Banjo game. That's what we're all excited about. So
it's going to be an ARPG Banjo. So
I'm down. Dude, let me upgrade Kazooie. Let's go.
Doesn't that announcement that they made about their independence have some reference to horns? What weren't there Spyro hints in there?
I think there was a Spyro hint in it, yes, which we don't need. Banjo's better than Spyro. Come on, we all know this.
That is true.
Come on.
Man, I don't know. Man.
Spyro's pretty mid.
But
I love Spyro a lot, so
I'm with Travis. I think Spyro's overrated, honestly. Well, it depends where you rate them, I guess, but I think it's okay.
I think
okay.
3D platformers died for a reason.
Okay, calm down.
Yeah. Was it over pretentious San Francisco people?
Wow, he threw the downfall of 3D platformers on your lap. I like it.
In one city.
If he throws the downfall in our lap, he also has to throw the success of the games industry on my city, which I will also accept humbly.
Humbly. We didn't touch on it, but there were announcements this week, and maybe we'll hear more this week where we can talk about it in more depth. But the rumor came out that Gearbox, right, is looking to break from Embracer, because Embracer's going through some stuff right now, right? They bought everything and now they're collapsing everything.
Now maybe I heard that wrong, but I thought that Embracer was looking to sell Gearbox, not that Gearbox.
No, you're right, to sell Gearbox.
Out.
Yeah,
correct.
So
and the statement, I must say, is the most confirmation, like not a subtle confirmation I've ever seen. It was like, we're so glad everyone's interested in what we're doing as a company. It was like I feel like whoever wrote that was like, let's just tell them yes without telling them yes. That's what it read to me. It was very funny.
Man. All right, boys, we are going to go ahead and wrap it up. A 2-hour show. We haven't done a normal 2-hour show in a long time. But Dune 2 calls.
You got to get to Dune.
Yeah,
are you getting the bucket, Ains?
Yeah, get that bucket. Get the bucket.
Yeah. If they're low on them, you're going before me, grab 2, and I will, leave.
Can you imagine walking in with 2 of those goofy ass looking buckets?
For the record, they were not low on the Dune buckets when I was there, but obviously I went to a different theater than you.
Yeah. Okay, we'll see.
I want to stick my arm into a worm. I don't even want there to be popcorn in it.
I'm going to fill mine with like gelatin.
What?
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening.
Wait,
right
how
now.
would you eat it? You got to eat it with your hands, Dan. What are you doing?
Exactly.
Buddy?
I'm going to go in there, like just
guys.
Peach.
Can we
peach
do
Jello?
Can we do a sanity check on Dan? Can somebody go in the social call?
2 of all the flavors you're gonna call Jello, peach.
Can we?
Or raspberry. Raspberry's really
somebody
good too.
Check to make sure Dan is all right. I don't know if anybody on the show is listening who do a check-in on him.
As someone who has hung out with Dan in real life multiple times, I can confirm he is not all right, but he is still a lovable person.
No.
Enjoy the movie. It is awesome.
Right.
Before we head out, let's shout some stuff out. Hogue, I know you did a video. We didn't talk about it here because I know you did a video, so I figured I'd go to you first on the whole Yuzu thing, which I am not very familiar with, and I haven't watched your video yet, but if you want to shout that out and anything else you got going on.
Sure. We had a big week on the Hogue Law YouTube channel, actually. I did a Hangouts and Headlines about the way media was reporting and social media was treating the Google Gemini rollout. Certainly some political considerations there, some headlines that took umbrage with some of the things Google was doing with that AI solution. So please do check out that video. I think it was a great conversation we had. And then in Virtual Legality, I went over the entire lawsuit between Nintendo and Yuzu because somebody reached out to ask me some questions from The Verge about that topic. And then I gave some quotes to them and some other places. And it was clear that a lot of people thought that this was ridiculous because emulation is legal in America. And unfortunately, I had to dive in a little bit further to explain that the DMCA, everybody's favorite law that knows takedowns on YouTube and elsewhere, the DMCA comes in and adds another layer of consideration to the emulation question. And that Nintendo is probably not out of their minds in bringing this lawsuit. That doesn't make it a winner, but it does make it more likely to end in settlement, and a settlement that you won't necessarily like if you love Yuzu or Nintendo emulation in general. So please do check out that video as well. I thought that was a really effective one. We had a really active community asking very good questions during that video. So please do check both of those out on the channel. I'm trying, as I've said, I think a number of times in this space and others, to be a little bit more regular in cadence with videos on the channel. So hopefully that will continue in the future. But thank you so much for everybody that pops in over there. And I think Ains hasn't mentioned it yet, but I won't be on the Bitcast next week. So If you're looking for your Hogue fix, you've got videos on the channel there to check out. Travis already celebrating, but I won't be on the Bitcast next week, so please do come visit me on the channel. I miss you.
I like that you said looking for your Hogue fix. Travis is, he was excited.
Mhm.
He was excited.
Travis is excited.
We will have a guest next week. We will still broadcast on Hogue channel as well, co-broadcast as we always do. So you won't miss it over there. Feel free to join us in both places as always if you enjoy doing that. But yeah, we'll have someone else join us. I already confirmed they can join us. So it should be good show, and it's a first time guest as well. So be a good show next week, regardless. So I hope you have a good time, Hogue.
You're going to Chicago, you said?
I didn't say to anybody on live, but yes, Dan, I am.
Oh, hey everybody, he's going to be in Chicago. Look for him.
Now you know where to find him.
Yeah, go find him on
Find him.
Navy
Here,
Pier somewhere.
here's photos of his family.
Yeah.
This is who you should look for.
Hilarious. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said that.
No, not at all.
Don't look for him. He's going to be in Milwaukee, actually. Just going to change that up real quick.
Travis, what you got, man?
Yeah, check out my full review of the Outlast Trials 1.0 on Tuesday. You can look at that, or March 4th? Oh no, tomorrow, and then the game comes out on Tuesday. So yeah, you can check that out. And then I've got a bunch of previews and stuff I'm working on for GDC that I cannot talk about. And then I've got upcoming reviews and whatnot. And it's good times. And that's me.
Hey, Rachel Cowart, who we've had on the show, she's going to be at GDC and she's being a speaker at GDC.
Excellent. I'll see you there.
So yeah, hit her up because I congratulated her on getting a speaker role for Take Two. Remember, she works for Take This, not Take Two, TakeThis.org. So keep an eye for that. That'd be cool if you could catch up with her. Be good.
Will do.
Other than that, on the season gaming side, pretty quiet right now. We do have a preview of Enshrouded up. I think I mentioned that was coming out last week, so that's up from Zach. Alex is covering Rebirth, and we'll have a lot of thoughts on Rebirth soon for everyone. And we got a couple other things in the work. We're actually testing out a potential new show for the channel, which would be like a duo show, a tandem, if you will, back and forth on specific topics. So not with me, but with other members of SG. So keep an eye for that, hopefully here in the near future. But otherwise, hope you have a good week. Hope will not be with us, but he'll be back obviously in 2 weeks. We will see you next Sunday with a new guest. Until then, hope you enjoy the week, and we will see you later. Peace.